Hey there, I'm Eternal. I'm an object show fan who's on a journey to know everything about object shows. Let's play Object Catchup. Hello and welcome into Object Catchup. This is where we discuss object show episodes right after watching them. Whether they're new or old, famous or unknown, it doesn't matter. We will get to it all. Now, for today, it is finally time to get to the series, which has been sort of changing the schedule for a while, which is Paper Puppets Take 2. Paper Puppets Take 2 is the relatively enormous series by YellowAngiru, which last week we took a look at the first season of. We're sprinkling in, of course, some other videos in the middle because this catch-up is taking a while. Now, of course, this series has been ongoing on and off for 10 years now. It had episode 17 release about a week and a half ago right now. But, you know, we'll see when the video releases. There's noises in the background. I'm very lucky. And, you know what it is, right? You know what it is. It's a big deal. It's time to watch it because Paper Puppets Take 2 Golding is back for a second season. Episode 1, Show on the Road. Okay, so a while ago I watched episode 1 of Paper Puppets Take 2. Now this is an interesting episode, and at the end of the day it's a very important episode, right? Because it stands as the opening statement of a series that is ongoing, right? In the way with the quality of those Paper Puppets episodes, it didn't really matter in the modern times because you don't need to watch it necessarily, right, to understand it. To watch Paper Puppets Take 2, you have to watch this, which means that this episode holding up is an extremely important thing, right? Like, there's a degree of quality that it kind of wants to try to uphold in the modern times, otherwise it's not gonna work, right? So, does it manage to do that? As well, with, of course, the factoid that this ends up being one of the top dog episodes. What I mean by top dog episodes, I always like to say, if an object show episode has achieved over 1 million views, that makes that episode and the show that is on a top dog in object shows. Very little have done it. Only the real standouts have managed it, and therefore this show manages to remain on that list. Now we start off here with the paper, with gold ingot remaining in the actual paper themselves, where we end up having them look at the time, and then we get a delivery from a delivery man which has gotten themselves a package, which is pretty cool. Now this package happens to contain people in it. Now we're not going to question the legality of this statement, but yeah, we end up doing it. This episode is in HD, so it's managed to keep itself pretty alright, but I mean the camera quality of course still remains to be seen. The delivery guy gets paid, which, by the way, do you do that? You don't pay the delivery driver usually, right? I mean, like, if it's like for like food, then yes, but like if it's like a post office, I don't think you tip the post office, right? Like, the company is supposed to do that. You know, like the post, you're supposed, yeah, right? Okay, but whatever. Anyway, I've always got a freaking delivery calls at 50 cents, so yeah, they end up going to the Paper Puppet studio, and we end up opening them with the contestants and the ball flying out with the factoid, which, by the way, they have new assets as well. They were reprinted entirely for the sake of this, which I will be honest, fair enough. I mean, it's also been like a year, so maybe they would have needed to happen anyways. But you press the button, and it transports them to the comic dimension. No, don't do that. It transports them to the animated dimension. Yes! Paper Puppets Take 2 is animated. We knew this, but, like, you know, yes, it is in fact an animated show. This is, however, not really animated. It is much more in line with the PowerPoint object shows of the time frame. It did test this out one time in Paper Puppets Season 1. When it tried it out. However, here is the show fully delivering that. And in general, it is doing a pretty good job. Yeah, I mean, I would say that this episode overall does hold up. There's a couple of details about it that are complicated, right? Like, for example, music. Sometimes, absolutely, it depends on the song, it ends up getting drowned out. The voices, because it's kind of what happens when you just drag music files into Movie Maker, right? Like, if you don't sort out their volumes, one of them is going to be loud, one of them is going to be quiet. Good luck. Hope for the best. It does seem to kind of start bad and then get better slowly, but yeah, I managed to do that. In terms of the writing of it, of this episode, I mean, it's of course dealing with a little bit more of like, it's for the first time where it's properly written, right? Because, you know, Paper Puppets, there was so much improv going on in that season 1, where getting here to the season 2 where it's properly, you know, written and you're saying lines properly, right? It's giving a different type of vibe, and you can tell immediately because, yeah, things just kind of happen a bit differently, right? You can tell that in this episode, there's already a degree of sort of plot lines trying to happen, right? Whereas, like, in Paper Puppets, plot lines were really rare that you actually got to try to see any of it, because you know, when you're improving a lot of the time, like, you can even have a framework, but of course, like, you know, you can't, like, properly plan unless there's time. But here you can already see that he's trying to do that. You're like, yo, what's up with this cave? I don't know, but somebody's gonna hide it. You see, that's like a plot detail, right? Then, you know, the journal's hiding what's going on in the cave, because apparently very bad, right? All this stuff's going on. Then there's like the loaf who might be in the Santa hat. We don't know if that's gonna be a thing, but, you know, whoever the hell knows, right? Like, all of these things what's trying to happen. Ambulance outside, saving lives. Let's go. Big ups, big W's. And alright, we end up having that's okay, the Gum Machine, where we end up having the people that end up joining the season. So the people that joined the season ended up being Basketball Flashlight, Pan, Glass Shard, Post-it Note, Bottle, Chainsaw, Gong, Brick, and Slipper. These are the set of characters I've been moving. I mean, of course, it's apparently drawn by a randomized system this time, but I mean, like, I don't think it's randomized, of course. I think that there was a lot of decision going on. This ends up taking in a lot of these characters that were definitely personality, however, didn't make it very far, right? So, yeah, kind of Chainsaw, yeah, Pan. Well, I mean, Pan made it very far. But, like, you know, that kind of non-finalist characters that have you know, the majority of the personality to them. So kind of Chainsaw had personality, Brick had personality, Post-it Note had personality, right? Flashlight had personality, Glass Shard had personality, right? A lot of these characters that ended up having personality, but not make it too far, get another go. So I think it's overall fair selection. I mean, everybody else is up for elimination, is therefore eliminated technically. So these are the characters that usually either made it far or didn't have number personality to begin with, right? So for example, a character like Mirror, like Cup, like the Bag, these characters never really got going too much in terms of like what would they really mean as a character, which means that do very well. And then also the big top dog performers, you know, like Fridge, like Watermelon, like Toothbrush, didn't really get to do too much. And then there's Shuriken and Chip, which are the only two real exceptions, but I guess it's kind of a rejoined debutante type of people. Maybe we didn't want to include them into another try, so I can understand it. Yeah, in terms of in terms of the cast, I think it makes sense. There's also the new people. By the way, the eliminated contestants get sent to the dark pit of despair. By the way, they shouldn't have been sent there. I mean, like, if they're not in the season, they're not eliminated. What do you mean? They're not eliminated. They're just not in the show. Like, what? Okay, but either way, we had to have the new contestant jump in. I don't think there's like one shot of all the new contestants, so it's I'm not exactly pointing them out. Yeah, but then we end up having ourselves the intro and the challenge. So the challenge is a paintball contest. However, it's actually dodgeball in disguise. it's like a paintball dodgeball, but because like instead of you don't have a paintball gun, you just have paintballs. You just throw them. Okay, bro. But Yes, we end up doing it. Now, this ends up showing off the animation. Now, of course, because of the slideshow as nature that it has to be, of course, with the fact that it's a PowerPoint object show, it does suffer a little bit from the incapability of showing proper movement, right? Which means that it's going to have some complications in that aspect. However, I will say there's one thing that this episode does, and it doesn't have fear, right? It doesn't try to necessarily hide too much. It will show characters in different angles. It will show different, locations. It will try to do everything. And in what's overall a relatively decent challenge, because this challenge ends up actually, showing up a lot of the possible environment. Now, I will admit, I don't think it does it enough. I think it should have focused a little bit more on the environment than than it really did. However, by showing things like the cave, the cliff, all these things, it's showing off locations which are then to be relevant in due time, right? Which is good. Like this. Like that. This is what we like to see. And then we end up having this is the chat side, the pink curtain, the paintball machine. Yep. And having Golden get freaking in. There's a waterfall. Yeah, you see, like, all these locations, they are relevant. They are there. And it's all relative use. So we also end up having the usage of confessionals in this episode. Yeah, a couple of them. For, I think, Poston, for somebody else. No, for Ace, right? And then also for Golding in the gag where they accidentally ate yellow paint rather than mustard, which is intriguing. I will be honest, I'm just I just like confessionals, dude. I don't know what it is about it. I like confessionals, okay? I think confessionals are good. And, we kind of moved away from confessional when objects will stop being TDI, but, like, come on, they're good. They're good. I like the gag of it turning to the confessional Golding and just vomiting. Like, it's funny. But it's a fun gag. It holds the test of time. Confessionals hold the test of time. In general, I do think the humor is definitely the strongest part of it, though, because it actually is pretty funny, in my opinion, the show. Like, dude, the freaking caramel cube taking a piece of the side of the screen is an action, and utilizing it to bounce it. That's great. That's just a great gag. It takes advantage of his 4x3-ness immediately. It did perfectly. It's so good. But, yeah. Damn. But yeah, in general, in terms of challenge, it shows it off. It has a little bit of the problem, which I would say that a lot of these paintball challenges, a lot of these kind of one at a time elimination challenges in a battle royale have, which is kind of a lot of the time in battle royale type challenges, it ends up being a lot of the same thing, right? It ends up being character gets hit, oh no, and then the next character goes ha 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 ha, and then they get hit, and then they go oh no, and then the next character goes ha 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 ha, and then they get hit, and then they go like oh no, like all these things, or like we try to spice it up. We're like, oh, you got eliminated because you were blabbering monologue, and oh, you guys got distracted, so accidentally threw it at each other, and oh, you got distracted, so you threw it at yourself, right? But like in general, it's not like that different, like we kind of keep it moving, right? So I've never been like too into the battle royale challenges. I think that they're a little bit difficult to really like showcase in the best of ways, to be honest. But yeah, in general, I do think that this episode upholds itself. I think it's survivable. I think it's alright. I think it does its job. We're having eventually, after we get the team leaders, which end up being treasure chest, then which barely shows up, gets like one hidden globe and the caramel cube. Three new fellas who managed to immediately be here and claim their spot as team captains. I mean, that's a way to make them immediately possibly relevant, so that's kind of cool. Globe barely does anything. Treasure chest barely does anything. Does Globe even do anything at all? I mean, they were gonna get hit by like that bush fella, but then like the bush fella got hit. But I don't know if it was by Globe. But either way, we are now having ourselves a new not an elimination system. This voting is for favorite contestant. So you're supposed to vote your favorite and your least favorite contestant, and then the person who got the most favorite votes gets to get an advantage, and the person who gets the least favorite votes gets to getting a disadvantage. Is this a good idea? No. No, it's not. I mean, like, okay, well, here's the thing. Right, it's like, you can't do this right now because it's not the time. It's not an even playing field. Fans versus favorites. doesn't, you can't, there's a reason why those seasons are called fans versus favorite. Like, I'd be very surprised if the top spots are not just all taken up by Paper Puppet Season 1 contestants. Because theoretically, by the time that, they show, like, because of course now, yes, we watch this before we watch Paper Puppet Season 1, so we don't have the knowledge of the Paper Puppet Season 1 characters usually. However, at the time, it will be watched by YellowAngiru fans who get to vote within that time frame, which means that they're the ones which have the knowledge of Paper Puppet Season 1. So I'm presuming that it's just going to be, those characters from Season 1 which are going to clutch it out. Maybe one or two, and the least favorites are probably just going to be the characters that maybe showed up in this episode, right? So it's not really the time to do favorite or least favorite, but like we're going to, I'll see if I'm wrong, but it's going to be intriguing to witness for sure. As we are doing it, Journal, apparently nobody can, it's up to Journal to protect everyone else from this thing. Is it now? I did not know that. When Oju goes into the cave, probably sees like an eldritch abomination and goes like, well, this is all me. Shouldn't tell anybody else about this thing that's gonna eat us all. Yep, sounds good. Like, what? Go tell Gold Ingot or something. It's his showgrounds. Like, yeah, what do you mean? No, it's not up to You're not that big of a deal. You're not that important, Journal. You're not that important. See, but like, well, I don't know what it is, but should have probably told Gold Ingot. Gold Ingot can, snap it away. I don't know, order a delivery of like the firefighters, like, they can get it done. But I don't know if Journal's that important. I think Journal's trying to play it up a little bit. But yeah, that's episode 1. Does it survive? I think so. Of course, there's criticisms with it. However, I do believe that, for being like a 2015 episode, 1 year after not doing that, only the second ever properly animated YellowAngiru episode, or at least Paper Puppets episode, right? There's a lot to like about it. There's a lot improved about it, and I think you can see some nice details, and just the fact that it's already trying to do plot lines, and implied that you see, like, just like with Paper Puppets Season 1, it shows off, like, effort. Like, it shows off effort. There's effort to improve. There's effort to create a storyline. There's effort to do plot elements. There's effort to have characters that are written and are different, right? Like, there's ideas. Like, this is never a show that is trying to shy away. It's always a show that's just done. Like, it does what it does, right? And it's doing. So yeah. Anyways, episode 2 of Paper Puppets Take 2 is titled Culinary Catastrophe. When did this release? I should probably check the release dates, because episodes of this end up having a long wait. January 2017. It's been over a year since episode 1. Let's see what happened. Go! Okay, that is episode 2 of Paper Puppets Take 2, and yep, it's another little interesting episode, because I think that this entire season is going to be interesting, because what ends up happening, alright, with this season is that because of its longevity, right, the fact that it has had 17 episodes in 10 years means that at the end of the day, they're spread out kind of thin, right? Which means that, like, there's long amounts of time between these episodes, so you can directly see evolution happening in real time. You will see the show piece by piece improve moment by moment, right? Which means that each episode, it almost feels like we're unlocking new features, right? Like, it feels like we're unlocking different things. So, like, in this episode, we're unlocking smoother animation. We're unlocking different voice actors, right? We're unlocking, like, there's someone else, widescreen, right? Like, we're unlocking these things, and it makes for an interesting situation, because, you get to see it directly. Now, it's 2017. 2017 is the dead period. Alright, object shows in 2017, don't know about those. They weren't very alive. I was kind of starting to get shit done, right? And then until it was about to arrive to a screeching halt. BFDI was like, ooh, do I come back? Do I not? Do I come back? Do I not? And then they decided no, until eventually they come back with BFB the year later. So that means that in 2017, there's not that much going on, right? So, in general, like, the core group of people, I guess, had a bit of time to kind of grow into the position. However, in general, yeah, not much is exactly going on. So I do think that, like, especially, like, when there's a 2017 episode on, I feel like that year, like, there's some context that has to get put into that year, you know? Because, like, that year, it was not a great year. But we're here, you know? And we end up having Bottle wake up and eventually go over to Milk Carton, who's apparently incredibly shy and doesn't want to speak because they got embarrassed about that one time ever since the dance, which they end up talking about it. Every time there's text on the screen, we take this as a massive opportunity to meme, which is unfortunate. It is unfortunate for sure, because we end up having some interesting things mentioned. We have that boy meme or whatever it was, or the freaking Lenny face, you know, like those like 20s, like those, you know, time accurate memes, right? That end up kind of showing up the text, and it was like, oh yeah, this is old. It kind of reminds you of it a little bit more. So we end up having the dance. Now, what has happened at the dance? So, at the dance, apparently Milk was going to go over to talk to football. However, there's a puddle on the ground, which is unfortunate. So they trip and they throw their cup so far up it hits the ceiling. And then it hits some like smoke detector on the ceiling, which starts spraying water. And then you've ruined the dance. Now, okay, look. That is, I have to admit, that is a low point. That would be a low point for a person. That would be a pretty unrecoverable fail for a bit. I'm not gonna lie. That, like, I didn't speak again for the rest of the year. You know what? For that year, fine. I have to say, it would not have gone great at school. However, you know, eventually you gotta kind of snap out of it, and Bottle goes like, well, I'm gonna make sure you never feel like that again. I'm gonna try to help you out, you know, try to give you some space, and we can do that. However, we're on a very tight schedule, you know, one episode a year is a very tight schedule. So we end up transitioning ourselves into the widescreen. Presumably this is post-break, right? Because it was like pre-break and then it was post-break. But now we have ourselves a widescreen, of course, a widescreen rendition of the intro, which is pretty cool. And we end up heading ourselves. The animation is still slideshow-esque in nature, not all entirely, but it's sort of, it's getting there, you know. Like, there's certain sections that are there, but like we're nearing it, you know. Like, again, it really does feel like it's a transition, you know. Like, it really does feel like we're getting there, you know. The show is starting to figure that out. Same thing goes to, for example, facial expressions. Notice the characters have like way more actually different faces rather than, you know, the default ones. This is something that old object shows used to do. They definitely exaggerated on this, and I think everybody can reasonably agree. The creators from that time frame, I think they all agree that, like, they overdid it. They were like, how do we make this look better? Have more differing facial expressions. But then they just look a little bit, how would freaking Pan describe it? Derpy. You know, and ends up not exactly being great. And ends up looking a little bit over exaggerated. And in this case, you know, it's nearing there, but hey, you know, it's old, so it has to do that. Every object show there, you know, has to grow into over-exaggerating before eventually figuring out how to tone itself down. And anyways, we end up having the team picking, which apparently takes too long. Thank you, Golding, for your contribution to society. And then we end up having ourselves team. So, Caramel's team is titled Team H. Don't know about these names, but we'll go with it. So Team H is picked by Caramel Cube. The Caramel Cube, of course, Game Boy Color, Gong, Night Helmet, Plasma Ball, Flashlight, and Glass Shard. Of course, Glass Shard asked to pick Flashlight because, you know, paper puppets. There's also Gong, who's a bit dumb, and then there's the three new people, which we don't get to see too much about. However, they seem to be more on the thoughtful end. I do think that this team would be solid, though. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm looking at this team, and I do see some potential here, right? It's just kind of about figuring out the weak points, because, like, we've got some mind. Game Boy Color and Plasma Ball seem to have some mind. There's some physicality. Remember, Flashlight was a good runner. Night Helmet, naturally gonna have that skills. And then there's Glass Shard and Gong, who are also there. So, like, in general, I think that there is enough here, right? However, it's all about figuring out who's the best for the task, right? So for example, in this challenge, they failed to cook the chicken because they entrusted on Gong. Gong's one of the few people you can't just entrust, right? Because they don't really got the brains for it. So like you gotta kind of sort yourself out, right? You gotta kind of lock it in. And then there's Caramel Cubes themselves, which are pretty neutral. I don't know much about them. Then Earth's team is titled Team Question Mark. So this team involves Globe. You're not called Earth, you're called Globe. Globe. Then we got Pan, we got Bottle, we got Milk, we got Post-it Note, we got Brick, and we got Ace. Okay. This is intriguing. Now this team has had a problem of being kind of loud. So this team has loudness problems, right? Because there's a lot of people who want to speak, right? Brick is a very direct person, It's like, I want to say the thing, right? Post-it Note always is going to try to punch in, right, with their opinion. I have hereby calculated that the best thing to eat is potato, right? And then there's Pan, who's just kind of loud, right? And then, of course, it's going to be Globe itself. So, like, this team is going to struggle with that. You can see it in the challenge through and through, that this team is going to struggle to form a plan, right? So that means that in a collective effort, shit's going to go bad. Now, we end up having Milk here in this team, which, by the way, Bottle got picked first and then didn't ask to pick Milk, so I mean that could have been gone very bad very quickly. Bottle tries to hear out what Milk wants to do, however, like, there's just nothing that they both can do. There's too many personalities that don't give a shit. Right, so Milk was just like, fine, I'll cook myself, I'll just go over, right? Well, everybody else is bickering, but like, this team has the manpower to do well, because they've got a lot of interesting physical capability. Pan's pretty good, Ace pretty good, and of course the mental side as well. I'll say Globe's got it, and Post-it Note's got it, and Milk's got it. But like, we need to just kind of figure it out who's leading the team at any given time. Like there needs to be a de facto agreement, and I'm seeing this team possibly losing in due time. And then there's Team 47, so this is Treasure Chest. Treasure Chest team is aligned with Basketball, Slipper, Bubble Wrap, I think is your name, Ukulele, whatever the fuck your name is. You're not a bush, you're like chlorite. What are you called? Calorite? I don't remember your name. Okay, it's like a rock. Journal, and then Chainsaw. So, this team is much more solid in an interesting way, because this is the team that doesn't have a lot of technical capabilities, right? Pretty much nobody there has got any distinctive capability. However, they'll arrive as a unit, right? Because like there isn't really any loud character here, right? Like Chainsaw can be loud, Slipper can be loud, right? However, in general, they're not too many, and they're not exaggerating it, which means that Treasure Chest actually can act as de facto leader of this team, and therefore ask them to perform, right? We can like have them. They will be followers. There's enough followers on this team of median levels, right? Where like they're not that good, but they're not that bad, that are actually going to get you shit done, right? Which means that if we've got some solid leading figures here, I'm seeing some powerful. I'm seeing Team 47 as a strong one. However, it just kind of depends, right? If the other two teams are on high point, this team loses by default because they can't get to a high point. Their floor is higher, but ceiling is lower. That's what's going on with Team 47. Anyways, we have ourselves the advantage when they're going to Journal. Of course, actually, now that I think about it, that was less good. It goes to the old players. No, it makes sense that it goes to Journal, because of course Journal is apparently saving the world. They were stopping the evil thing from the cave that they apparently saw, that is entirely confined to the cave and didn't see them back and isn't chasing them and is never gonna leave, and they're protecting them the world from, because it's a bad idea to tell anybody. Okay, cool. And then Ace gets this psych because they used magic, and magic is cheating. Then I said the challenge is cooking. They end up cooking. Now, what are the proper things. So let's see. We end up having the 13 Team 47. Again, they just make a chocolate cake and pancakes, pancakes, bacon, and eggs, which is a solid combination, and they do well because again the team sorted it out. It was like, yo, you get me? Like, yo, do ingredients. I cook and then we good, right? Because you see, there wasn't protesting done on that team. It's like, okay, fine, sounds good, sounds right. Like all of this stuff makes sense. Like there's an agreement. There's not protesting going on. So this team sorts itself out, which is nice. So in a collective effort, they'll do well. Team H, their chicken is burnt because Gong for some reason tried to put it on very high. Not sure why, but that ends up getting a 0. And then the dessert is very good, so they still managed to clutch up a 5. But yeah, it's a bit complicated. And in the meantime, the last team ends up not having anything because they bickered, but Milk clutched up, making a margarita and a candy apple, which is pretty extravagant. And yeah, it ends up getting them safe, of course, because at least it's 2 pieces of eatable food. So everybody else up for elimination. Choose someone who deserves to win a prize and deserves to be eliminated. So it's a light dislike system. Still heading into this episode now. Gong should go, obviously. Gong should obviously leave. They didn't fucked up the challenge, like they are doing fine. The dessert people, the dessert creators, they made a good dessert. I got a 4 out of 10, which would be more than enough to possibly survive. If the chicken was also at around a 4 out of 10, they would have survived. However, Gong fucked up the cooking of the chicken. You can argue that Plasma Ball didn't, check up, or not. Nobody checked up on them. Never game would call it Plasma Ball, but like at the end of the day, it's Gong's fault. So Gong should go, right? So that makes sense. In terms of the prize, I don't know, glass shard, because they got flashlight on their team, so like the relationship goals. That's the reason. That's the reason, guys. All right, there we go. I'm a great reason there. Anyways, okay, what I'm gonna do, all right, is I notice, okay, that the 2 parts of episode 3, they're made very far apart. So even though there is a combined episode 3, I'm gonna watch it by parts, because the playlist has both the 2 parts of episode 3 and also the full part of episode 3, which, well, okay, can't do that. Can't watch it twice, and that would be a bit of a waste of time, right? So we are gonna go by watching them in their parts, okay? So episode 3, Blue Nightmares, part 1. Go. Okay, that is part 1 of episode 3 of Paper Puppets Take 2. Yet again, I felt like it was a better idea to watch this in their respective parts because there's a long time between the parts. I think it's a more realistic view of the time that has passed between it if I watched them in their parts rather than in the full episode compilation. So that's just my decision. You can disagree, feel free, but too late. I've already done it, right? So I think that this episode shows off a relatively interesting trait, which I do think that a lot of those like early show creators wanted to try. All right, because back in like the OG days, even though like this show, like already by the time of this episode, right, we are sort of transitioning in terms of era, right? This is post BFB release already. However, it's post like Jack Jellyfish alive and well as of the time of the release of this episode. This show's still very much so riding the classic wave. But it's like, as far as those classic shows go, there's one thing that those shows kind of have in common, and I think is that like a lot of them, they really wanted to dare. They really wanted to dare in this category, because I think that there was a global realization, right, that happened with a lot of these show creators, that it was like, all right, the main shows are fun, right? They're lighthearted, they're relatively nice, right? Which means that, like, BFDI, it's all fun vibes there. Inanimate Insanity, I mean, like, it's getting more serious, but, like, in general, it's more of, like, a compelling story than it is anything, right? So there was, like, this gap, all right, where there wasn't really a dark object show in the sense of like, a proper object show based a bit more on fear, a bit more on everything, right? So whether it's shows that try it out for an episode, right, or it's shows that kind of like do everything, or shows that directly do that, like I think Object Terror, dude, that was like some old thing, right? Some shows that try to proper do like a scarier plotline. I think the Object Show movie, whatever the hell that was, remember that? Right, like that was like a thing. Right, like these like OG shows that are kind of putting it a bit more in trying to make it a little bit darker of a mood setting, right? And same thing goes with kind of those episodes. Even in Anime Insanity, right? They did an episode of an abandoned mansion right back in the day, because like it was just like, this is like an untapped potential, because like BFDI never went here, right? Which means that like trying to do a little bit more of a fear-based situation makes for a compelling, unique product, right? So it's intriguing. However, it's just kind of course, the main fault with it is that writing horror is hard. Writing something scary is hard, and this kind of fails at doing that, because it's kind of it doesn't hate like realism. Like I think there's kind of an awkwardness because okay, here's the deal. General writing is fine, right? However, there's this issue that ends up appearing in the this type of this when it writes this, is that writing in this context, it's very timing based, right? Like when you're making, I guess I'm saying horror, it's not scary, right? But like, you know what I mean, right? Kind of thriller type stuff, right? Where it's basing on tenseness of the moment, right? Because this is based on the tenseness of the moment, right? They're going down, they're seeing a monster, they don't know what it is, right? And like when it's basing it off of this tenseness of the moment, it's writing becomes a lot more timing based, right? It depends on when a character speaks, how they speak, right? And in general, and I think that's the one thing that this show kind of didn't have, right? Because it was writing a scene, and it was kind of bullshit to listen to it, because like, dude, it's fucking, there's no way Ace is actively running away from the monster and then stops to look at the closet and go, hey, we should enter the closet, and then they enter the closet. Like, because of the sci-fi's nature, they can't actually speak while walking, so they have to stop, say it, and then go, right? It's kind of like like there's just that general complication, right? Where it's like, it's just, I don't know about it. So I think that's why it fails, because it fails at being tense, because it's kind of like, because it feels like the oncoming threat isn't as oncoming as it seems, because every time somebody speaks, it's paused, right? It's almost like it pauses time just to let the words be said, right? That's kind of the one issue that I personally find, but anyways, let's talk about some of the other events that happen in this episode. So Golding ends up going over. We have a renewed intro with a new song. We end up getting the characters, which have been re-asseted for the millionth time, and they've also been recast for the millionth time. Both some YellowAngiru characters, which have received new voices, and also some of those characters with new voices that now have new voices, which is interesting. But yeah, we end up having the votes. 1,286. The show's getting into the big leagues. The prize ends up going to Caramel Key. Why? Nobody knows. I mean, like, they did, I guess, something. I don't know. Like, they made the team. Right, so is that the prize? Like, good job, you did the team there. I mean, okay, fair enough. And then the limited contestant ends up obviously being Gong, who ends up getting eliminated. There's not much to it. They're gone. They're in the dark pit of despair, and then we now have ourselves the challenge. Go to the MRH abandoned laboratory. In this laboratory, there are dozens of mystery stacks hidden in different places. You have to find the most within 4 hours. The most will be the winner. The least will be the losers. So yeah, Post-it note ends up complaining about it being just a scavenger hunt. I mean, a scavenger hunt's fine. So scavenger hunt's fine. There's not been a scavenger hunt yet. This is the second challenge of the show. Come on, person. No. But anyways, we end up delving ourselves off, and we end up having some new tactics. So some fellas, so we end up having some teams. Two teams that decide to split into small groups. Globe's team ends up splitting into about 3 groups, which is interesting. Yeah, then they go in over. Spin up with Pan. Yet again, as you can see, his team is struggling with power dynamics, of characters like Brick, for example, just generally disagreeing and not really having a power, like a super easy to deal with team. Well, that's kind of going to protest decisions, so that's a problem. Then, on the meantime, Caramel Cube, at least... Caramel Cube is very honest, to be fair, though. Very honest, ends up going like, yup, this is... we're making they were making groups, and I don't have a better idea, so I'm gonna make groups. Fair enough, very honest. In general, I think that the writing in this episode, it just gives off certain vibes. It just gives off certain vibes of things that wouldn't be said. Like out of sight, out of mind. Would you say that? I don't know. I feel like it's not opportune for the moment, because it makes the line longer. And then in the meantime, Treasure Chest team ends up deciding to stick all together. They decide to stick all together, which sounds pretty good to their team. And yeah, this creates, of course, so the way that this is split, of course, makes for more complicated writing, even more, right? Because what ends up occurring is that you end up, of course, splitting yourself into more teams. The nice thing about having teams be together is that you only really need to write 3 scenarios, but if you split the team into 3 and then you split the other team into 3, then that means that there's 6 plus 7, so now there's 7 things to think about. Right, there's 7 different locations that a person could be in, which sort of complicates the situation a little bit more. I think that the team that's going to stick together is going to do fine, personally. I mean, I don't know. They're kind of blaming the idea, being like, well, that wasn't great, but I trust them. But yeah, the first person to encounter much is Ace. So, Ace, Pan, and Brick end up going together. They end up getting into an elevator that works for a little bit until the power goes out, so then they get stuck, and they end up needing to exit out of the emergency lock. After they do that, they end up actually finding a sack in the room they exit out of in the emergency area, and however, there's also a little blue monster that Brick finds, which is not a great monster. If they don't move, apparently the monster won't see them. However, Pan's there, so that plan doesn't work. They end up hiding into a closet, and they've got a sack, but they've also got somebody on their tail, so that might be a problem. In the meantime, we end up having the set of flashlight and wait, what's going on? Okay, yeah, so flashlight and freaking. Wait, when did the show? Yeah, Flashlight and Glass Shard, they're trying to help out. However, Flashlight is starting to get, a little bit upset at Glass Shard for not being always attentive. However, Caramel Cube helps Flashlight to not fall into the pit that they've accidentally booby-trapped into. And, they end up doing that. At least you care. So it seems like Flashlight is, maybe not the happiest with Glass Shard right now, which is intriguing. However, so then we end up cutting off immediately to a scene of Night Helmet being like, yo, I mean, like, I know that Flashlight is dating Glass Shard or whatever. I think I could do it. And so I'm seeing the, it's not, I feel like I'm seeing the idea in which the writer is trying to get me to think, See scene where Flashlight is not happy with Glass Shard. See scene of other guy that wants to take Flashlight away from Glass Shard. I'm seeing a pattern. I don't know. The writing of this, it's on the nose, okay? I'm sorry. But yeah, Plasma Ball, however, correctly has a decent amount of decency and goes like, yo, you shouldn't do that, Like, I think, like, even if you are, charming or whatever, like, as the kids would say these days, got the riz, like, I don't think that you should do that. So yeah, they end up having a little bit of a weird situation, And the Game Boy Color is just there in the middle, being like, why am I here? In the meantime, the set of three, they end up finding a pit, and they end up deciding, yeah, there seems like there would be a sack down there. And eventually, Journal volunteers to go down. Journal's very courageous. I mean, very courageous. I gotta admit, there's some power going on. He sees a threat, being like, I don't care about any of my personal safety. I'm going. Fair enough, but like, damn. Yeah. They happen to perfectly have both rope and walkie-talkies with Dowray or whatever you call it. I will figure out this guy's name one day. End up sorting out. So they end up having Journal go down there. They end up seeing the entity, and however they don't have quite the instinct to escape like Brick does. So that's rough. In the meantime, somebody ends up turning off the power. Why? We'll find out in part 2, because that's the stop. That's the to be continued of the episode part. I would say stops at a relatively decent point. Yeah, I would say stops at a good point. And overall, that is the episode. As I say, this is definitely an episode that, it's trying to dare, right? I think it's one of those things, right? It's a lot of what the season seems to be trying to do here early on. It's trying to do stuff. It really wants to. It really wants to. It's limited in certain aspects, but it wants to do everything. It's not giving itself anything easy to work with. That first episode, it's not easy. That second episode, it's coming up with plotline. It's coming up with right. Like, it's really trying to bolster itself up. It doesn't want to play it slow. It wants to play properly. However, it suffers from it, of course, because, you can tell that it's trying to punch up to a ceiling level too high, right? It's trying to jump higher than it can reach, which means that it's failing the high jump, right? Not even in the sense that the episodes are bad, because, you can see the effort of the episode, and you can fill in any gaps, right, with, like, the writing or whatever, right? And, like, even if you can, I think that what ends up happening here in these original episodes is that, from an external point of view, they take a year, yeah, because you're always, like, trying to, make an episode a year ahead of your league. Absolutely. This type of episode is cool, but, like, a YellowAngiru from 2017, looking at episode 2, do I think that you can pull this off? No. Do I even think that from episode 1 you can pull up on episode 2? No. Because it's just complicated. It's just difficult to do. And, like, the levels is increasing, and we're trying to implement these details, and it's hard. And, it's starting to make sense why the show is taking as long as it does, right? As, like, it has had to grow into every detail, right? It has had to grow into all skills. It starts off with the minimum that it can muster, and it's slowly implementing animation, slowly implementing writing, it's slowly implementing voice actors, it's slowly implementing, like, everything. Every single aspect of it, it's slowly implementing. Assets, same thing goes, right? All that stuff, assets, backgrounds, locations, story arc, plot lines, right? It's trying to slowly implement them all at once, however. So by doing this episode by episode, evolution, you end up like, okay, you've evolved in every category. However, since you've evolved in every category at once, that means that every category has just gotten so much slower at once. So even if, for example, right, maybe think about this. If after the 1 year break of this episode, you just made another episode with the same exact capabilities, it would probably take a couple of months, right? It would probably not take that long. However, since, you can always be better, there's this gradual improvement, and then now everything's slow again, and it takes a year, right? That's kind of the thing that happens. It's just the way that it goes. It's just the way that it goes. And yeah. Okay, part 2 of episode 3, Blue Nightmares, of course. Here we go. Okay, it's part 2 of episode 3 of Paper Puppets Take 2, entitled Blue Nightmares. It's a lot of stuff. released on a Christmas Day of 2018, considering again part 1 was released on February 2018. That's something, and I think that's a valuable time because I do think that the vibe of this part is quite a bit different than the vibe of the first part. Gonna be honest, I do actually believe that. Which I'd be kind of weirded out by, because like I would think that they would arrive together, right? Like they would be written together, but like maybe not. I don't know, because like, that is an interesting question. Or is episode 3 written at the same time? Because for me, there's a fundamental vibe change going on here, right? And it's that episode 3 part 1 sort of takes itself in a serious way, right? It wants to be, to take advantage of that kind of tenseness, right? So when something happens, when a monster appears, you'll notice it's given a much bigger deal in that part 1, right? Like those encounters, right? Like it's a bit more of a, like there's a more lead up to it. Saying they go, like Jono encountered the monster, like that's a massive deal, like that's big stuff. And in general, big stuff's going on, However, in this episode, what ends up occurring is that the avenue of a monster is considered a much less deal-breaking thing. Right, like that's kind of the difference. Because if those monsters, they're not necessarily scary. Scary, it's their frequency, right? Because if every like 30 seconds you see somebody getting chased down by one, it stops being that big of a deal. Right? Whereas, in that first part, only about 2 showed up in the entire episode, which means that in general, it's a tense moment for those who find it, especially with the lead up to it, right? So this one tends to treat the monsters as a much more of a comedic tool than the tense building, right? Which I think arrives as a bit of a course correct, right? Because I was always mentioning in that first part discussion, right? It's that kind of like construction of a thing that, nobody has done this, nobody has done a super tense thing, right? And it's like, it turns out that, to be honest, right? Yeah, there hasn't really been a proper scary object show up, right? However, that's because, like, who wants it? Like at the end of the day, like that, it's kind of a concept that it's at odds with the concept objects have always delivered, because it's like, yeah, I mean, who wants that? Like not that many people want it. They don't want to be scared, right? Like it's not, like it's like a different media. It's like a different thing, right? And it don't align together. So I think it's a little bit of a course correct in a bit that from a vibe, because like, okay, here we treat the monsters much less seriously, right? But shout out to this intro music, like, it's fucking fire. But anyways, what do we end up having? We end up having Plasma Ball, Game Boy Color, and Night Helmet, yet again being a trio of just not bothering. Game Boy Color needs to charge their 3DS, so they're not picking out the thing until they charge the 3DS. Yeah, no, this trio is abysmal. They cannot sort themselves out to save their life. And they're trying. Plasma Ball's trying to be normal, but they're just left with nothing. There's nothing to work with. It's like Night Helmet is too short of themselves, and Game Boy Color is too short, and everybody else is dumb, right? So it's kind of like there's nothing that you could do, in that aspect. Then we end up having oh yeah, by the way, characters have been re-asseted again. I mean, like, are you surprised? Are you surprised? Tell me, are you surprised? I'm not surprised. I'm just expecting the characters to have a different asset every episode, okay? Alright, look, this is one of the things, like, in a way, these classic objects, they've never stopped doing that. They've never stopped doing that. Even freaking 3EE, which is like, it's just another one of those classic shows. Even then, that show has also had a re-asset thing going on like 4 million times. Like, like, even in the modern times, it just happens. But yeah, they end up running away, they end up finding a bag, which is pretty cool. They open the door, then they get there. Now, this monster appearing that's a proper jump scare. That one's the only one that's a proper jump scare. There's a few that, of course, are tense, but in general, this is the first one that proper arrives as a jump scare. So, fair enough. Not sure why. I mean, like, fair enough, but again, as I said, the vibe wasn't really that, so I'm kind of surprised by it. Yeah, they end up running away. And then we have the flashlight. Globe ends up finding one of the monsters, a different monsters, a more computery monster. They run away from it until eventually they drop by into Chainsaw and and eventually Globe, who's super scared of it, ends up asking if they can go with them because, they don't want to be alone. And eventually they decide, fine, I'll agree. Chainsaw is, a little bit more evilly, they're being a little bit more rude as you'd expect from them, because in the last few episodes Chainsaw was relatively composed, but I feel like Chainsaw is trying to be a little bit more indicative in this episode, in this part, I guess. But yeah, they agree to have Globe come by with them. In the meantime, Milk, Bottle, and Post-it Note end up reaching a room that's just a bridge that's getting slowly pulled back after the monster hits the lever. So you see, I think that this scene shows off everything perfectly well with what I meant in that last section where I said that the episode, right, that like the timing doesn't work for a tense thriller horror type episode, right? Because a character can't move and talk, right? Which means that, especially when the animation is not as fluid. There are certain moments, but there are moments of fluid animation in this episode. They do happen from time to time. Like, especially when the characters are leaving, for example, when they left the building, like, it does happen. Like, it's not, we're getting there, we're not there yet. So, like, things are kind of developing around. But I think this scene's a good example. Because, like, for example, the bridge gets pulled back as soon, like, literally, anytime. As soon as the bridge is starting to get pulled back and you have to go, you need to go there and jump. You don't need to wait, be like, oh no, it's going back. Guys, jump to the other side. And, like, it just in the time it took to say these 3 sentences, it could have all jumped and now it's too far, right? And then same thing goes for like everything else. Like it doesn't feel tense because again, the timing is always considered more optional, right? When like in more horror media, the timing that stuff happens is super important. It's super important, right? Which means that, yeah, this is kind of the detail of it, right? Anyway, supposed to know ends up catching Bottle. Either way, Bottle dies in the next minute because the monster ends up doing that. Eventually, the monster ends up getting tackled down, and they fall down by a push from Post-it Note and Milk. This is another way that the show makes that this episode becomes a bit less scary. Is because in that episode 1, in that part 1, sorry, we ended up having the monsters. While they were more tense, but they were also considered more unstoppable things. Right, like they're running away from them like if there's nothing that they can do. But in this episode, there's much more like the monsters being dealable with, right? Whether it's for like pushing them off, or later on where the chair gets thrown at them, right? Or of course the moment in the elevator, right? That makes for admittedly a very funny gag, but like it's a fun gag. But like in general, it reduces the scariness. It's like, okay, these characters, they can defeat the monsters, not the end of the world, right? So like as they're doing that, things are happening. Anyways, we end up having Bubble Wrap. As I said, Bubble Wrap, which has been re-acided, re-voice out, everything's changed with Bubble Wrap. Ends up deciding to pick a door. They end up opening the door. I will admit that these characters, like yes, of course they open the door and they find a monster right there. However, like none of the other characters have been doing like any of that. Like they've just been walking. There's not been a lot of searching going on, to be honest. Because that is something that I've noticed. A lot of these characters, they don't feel like they're searching. They feel like they're walking around the hallways, not going into the rooms, and just kind of hoping for the best. They're in hoping for the best mode, which isn't like great. But yeah, then we end up having some Globe find a bag in the trash can. Then it'd be like, come on, Delray, you can have it. Yeah, I can have it. All right, to help you out. Then eventually Chainsaw finds it, and they want to keep it. However, the other fella is like, come on, give it a Globe. Globe gave us one of the bags, so we can do it. So, now, there's one high level of thing that is not being considered. Is that, like, for some reason, the guy really wants to give Chainsaw's bag that they found to them. But it's like, well, you got to think about this a little bit. If Chainsaw's not going to give it, but you want to give it, doesn't matter what, then you can just give your bag, which is the one that Globe gave to you, to Globe, right? And then you keep the bag that you found, and you give the one to Globe, and then that's the same thing, right? So you don't even really need Chainsaw's consultation, right? Like, it's not necessary for due time. Like, you could just give it. Either way, they find a monster, and Globe ends up having one of the bags. Anyways, as they run away from the monster, they don't think about it properly. Slipper ends up going to a bathroom. Then we have yet again another gag that makes the monsters not look very scary. As Slipper just kind of doesn't give a shit and manages to win. Basketball, which is voiced by which you can really hear the two from Teapot start to shine through. Anyways, you get to have the run-in, then it's stuck there in the elevator, then they're up there, then we end up having Bubble Wrap trying to protect their friend because they grab Ukulele, and they throw the chair. I will admit that, these monsters are not that OP. Like, bro threw a chair. I mean, it was not, like, it's hardly the most piercing thing in the world. You know, like, I can get hit by a chair, not gonna fucking explode. You know, like, it's gonna hurt. But, like, I'm not gonna, like, you know, like, it'll be bad. But, like, it's not like death inducing. It's not like, you know, like, it's not, I don't know. It's like, it doesn't, I don't know. Like, these monsters, yeah, they've been nerfed for this episode. But yeah, Ukulele ended up being a Bubble Wrap, you did it, and then Epic. Anyways, then there's Journal, who has gone to re-asset. They end up going over to what's seeming like a control panel property or Mr. H. They was like, what is Mr. H? Anyways, well, we discovered it's Mr. Hand. Yes, Mr. Hand, who's in the comic dimension for some reason, still can't get out of the comic dimension, even though, freaking, as I said, you know, Goldingot can do it anytime. Did it in episode 1, for crying out loud. But yeah, they managed to do that, and then they're being like, you just think that, but it's soon enough, I'll be back, and stuff. Mr. Hand, in a way, remains the same tier villain than they were in Paper Puppet Season 1, where they're just like that type of villain that just goes like, I am so evil, I will warn you about my evilness, that way you are very aware. And yet again, will Journal tell us so? No, bro, dude. Here's the thing. You can tell a host, you can tell Goldingot. You know, I feel like you can tell Goldingot if there's something that's a problem. You know, because, like, a lot of the times, like, oh, I'm scared to tell the host because the host will do something bad. You know, these are brilliant shows. But, like, here, no, Goldingot's fine. They're clueless and kind of dumb, but, like, it's fine. You can tell them. You can warn them about a threat, you know? But, okay. Either way, everybody ends up leaving at around the same time, somehow. And they end up having the teams that loses be Team 47 until eventually Journal ends up propping by. Just want to point out, Journal there were 6 bags. Journal only brought out 4. Not exactly sure why, but, like, I mean, I'm not saying that, like, oh, you couldn't, like, maybe you couldn't bring up 6 bags, but, like, you can bring up 4 bags. I feel like it's not, like, too much more. But anyway, we end up having Team 47 eventually win, which means that Team H is up for elimination, losing for the second time. Here you can see some more reactors for, like, Caramel Cube, doesn't even show up, but, like, now you can see it. They're less cubey. Plasma Ball gets upset. Yeah, this team's suffering. This team is suffering from just like, there's just a general lack of anything going on here. I mean, like, there's problems here. Because it's like, these characters, they're beefing with each other, right? Is kind of the main thing that's happened. They're beefing with each other, but unlike the other team, right? Because it's like, for example, with the Team 47, right? You end up having where, like, no, sorry, not Team 47. Like, with Team Question Mark, for example, right? You end up having the situation. This team is a struggle, right? Because this team has a lot of clashing forces, right? So they're going to kind of disagree on trying to lead the team. Yes, absolutely. Now, I like how Ace's redesign ends up, bend the paper, don't bend the paper, bend the paper, don't bend the paper. Anyway. But like, see, this team has fundamental disagreements. However, it's between team leaders. So whoever wins the argument, if they can manage to arrive to a conclusion, will eventually have a plan. The thing that happens with Team H is that they have arguments between all of them. However, there isn't a team leading mentality, right? Like Caramel Cube has very basic, like, you know, they'll say a plan, but it's not exactly, they won't enforce it. Plasma Ball has common decency, but no planning capabilities. Everybody else is just trolling, right? So it ends up being a problem. You can tell also from the asset that Flashlight is upset with Glass Shard. So yeah, that plan is happening. So yeah, this team is that team's struggling. But that team's struggling. They need somebody to try to step up, and I don't know who the hell is gonna be. So it's gonna need something. In the meantime, Team 47, I still believe in their plan to be roughly the same. It's like, these fellas are too average to go alone. They really are. They are too average to go alone, in my opinion. Like, these people, they're not finding a bag. You know, like, Chainsaw found a bag, it was just on the floor, right? Like, they found one bag overall. Collectively, they didn't find anything, and in the last part of the channel, they split up, they found one bag. So, like, they need to really be collective. Like, I really do think that the treasure chest idea was better, because you can tell that these characters like Basketball or, like, Slipper, they're just trolling. They just don't give a shit, right? So, like, we really do need to stick together, I think. I think treasure chest has the right idea. Thankfully, this time they clutch up because Journal found them, but, yeah. And then the Team H gets eliminated. Yeah, interesting question, because the Caramel Cube didn't show up at all. Caramel Cube has 0 appearance in this episode, which is like, neither Flashlight or Glass Shard. They of course appeared in the part 1, so that's intriguing because of course the part 1 is just so long ago. I believe that Game Boy Color presumably arrives, however, at enough of an annoyance in this episode that I think they do survive. I think they do get eliminated, and then the people who didn't show up survive. But they're going to be in danger. But I'm going to have to say that Game Boy Color gets eliminated here. Maybe not, but I think it's what's going to happen, right? Also, as a little bit of a side note, why the hell does the Journal and Glass Shard not fit into the square in the credits of the voice talent? They totally could have fit. There's so much fucking space. How the fuck? Why are they going off of the screen? I don't know, but like, whatever. That's episode 3. It's time for episode 4. Episode 4 is entitled The Paper Pelican. When did this release? We have to find out. That was December 2018. Episode 4 was March 2019. For the first time, not a year between an episode. Go. Okay, that is episode 4 of Paper Puppets Take 2, The Paper Pelican. So, that is cool. I think that what happened in this episode is because, okay, well, this episode didn't take a year to make, for once. So, what happens? I think that what happens is that this is a showcase of like kind of like it took the damage earlier so that it can eventually go into it, because you can tell that last episode, right, that episode 3, it was still very slideshow. However, it had, you know, moments of being of animation, you know, proper smooth out animation, right? So it showed that it was capable and it was getting there, right? So this episode is kind of like, okay, we took those scenes that we managed to pull off and learn how to do in that episode 3 part 2 to show off here in episode 4. So now, instead of it being about a 75-25 slideshow-esque to you know, like smoother animation, now it's 75-25 to smoother animation against the other thing, which makes it a nice and very considerable improvement to the general like the average scene of the episode, and it looks very nice. It looks very nice. I mean, like, of course, we are now in March 2019. We are deep into Teapot. No, not deep into Teapot. We're deep into BFB. We're deep into BFB. Right as I don't remember when it splits, but it's like it's getting there. So, like, in general, we are definitely at the resurgence. I'm saying in general a lot again. In general. You're gonna just have to accept that that's the thing I say a lot. And we're having Journal tell the rest of their team what was going on is that they saw Mr. Han. Everybody else thinks it's really funny. By the way, characters have been re-acted again because of course they have. Not all of them. Some of them, like Malachi, or somebody else, I forgot. But like, yeah, some characters have had some redesigns again, and it goes how it goes. So they don't believe Mr. Hand, and they say, yo, you gotta have making it up. Now, interesting. I will point out that, I mean, like, they did escape the emergency hatchet. Just saying, I mean, like, I don't know if that closed, right? Because like, they left it, and that might have just stayed open. You know, like, if that stayed open, you could go down the escape hatchet and then show them the room. I'm just saying, they're not doing that. There's zero chance, but it's just saying. Right, so then we head ourselves to the elimination, where we have a rare moment. By the way, intro gets rework, of course, to be a little bit cooler. And then there's also the title card of the episodes, which the classic shows, you see, like, like shows. Okay, so the thing about title cards is shows were like, yo, we want to be cool, so we're gonna have title cards. But then, you know, post BFB shows that started are like, yo, we want to look nonchalant, so we're not gonna try to act cool, right? Kind of like BFB doesn't try to act cool, like it tries to act rough. So it's like it doesn't try to be the best of itself necessarily, right? So it doesn't do title cards. However, nowadays, we're back into the era of just episodes trying to be cool. So, like, now we're back to title cards. So it's like, if an episode is trying to be cool, it will have a title card, okay? I'm absolutely a full believer of it. If an episode has a title card, it's trying to look cool, okay? It's a try-hard episode, all right? But anyways, we end up having a rare thing happen during the elimination, and it's that Game Boy Color has gotten both the prize and eliminated. Yes, because there was a bit of a disagreement about whether Game Boy Color was in the right or was in the wrong, right? Because, you know, Plasma Ball, because, you know, there's a little bit of a perspective. Like, Plasma Ball's going like, come on, go get it. And it's like, I nearly said in general again. You see, I noticed it one time and then screwed for the rest of the day. And it's like, Platinum Ball's like, come on, go get it. Well, Game Boy Color is like, nah. So you can agree with Platinum Ball, being like, come on, you were right there, go get it instead of trying to 3DS. Or you can agree with what Night Helmet was saying and what Game Boy Color was saying in a way. It's just like, yo, you're not helping out that much either, so what the hell? Right? Even though Night Helmet agrees more with Plasma Ball, they're a bit more on that side of things. Like, they disagree on, of course, whether they should be allowed to date Flashlight. However, like, they agree together that Game Boy Color should go, right? So, yeah, Game Boy Color is getting a disagreement. I think it's because some people didn't realize that Plasma Ball can't get thrown, right? Because if Plasma Ball gets thrown, they'll shatter, right? So you can't, so that's like the one character that can't get thrown. I think that's like the thing that wasn't getting realized. But yeah, you got eliminated. Didn't use your immunity token. Bye-bye. Anyways, the challenge is to go up a tower. You can't go inside of the tower. You must climb around the tower. And somebody has to get up there and save the princess, which will get chosen around from the teams. The princesses end up being Flashlight, Bottle, which also has a redesign, and then Chainsaw. They have to wear this princess costume. Chainsaw doesn't want to do that. However, of course, they have to, or else they'll be eliminated. So we end up doing that. Backgrounds are cool, by the way. These, it's not something I've ever mentioned, but I will say that these backgrounds are incredibly vibrant. But even in the room, even in the blue, whatever, nightmare, the Mr. 8 laboratories, thought they were pretty good, but especially the grasslands, I will say these are some very, very good looking grasslands, and they hold up perfectly, right? Like, the animations episode is already kind of like, it already holds up very well, you know? Like, I don't have any problems with watching this episode in the big 26, you know? Like, this is already like, yes, I'm fine, and these background especially, it can absolutely work modernly. Like, there's not much, like the background, I wouldn't even change it. In other aspects, you end up having Flashlight try to get Glass Shard's attention. Glass Shard is just doing whatever on their phone. Night Helmet ends up deciding that this might be their opportunity. They try, however, it doesn't work because you can't just climb because there's bronze ingot or whatever in there. That's ending up being a little bit of a of a pickle, right? Because they just throw down bullshit to the people. So yeah. In the meantime, of course, the bros of Chainsaw are making fun of him because they're in the princess costume, so that makes sense. The bronze thing is throwing him down. Ace wants to fly up there. Golden Good decides that is not allowed. Still, come on. This is so annoying. It's so annoying. I've never been into this. I've never been into the concept of characters with magic or just banned from ever using their magic. Like, what the point of the character? Come on. You will forget about it in episode 5 and then don't have Ace do anything with magic. And now he's like, oh, I can use magic. Oh, no. Fuck off. Okay. If they have a clear advantage, they should be allowed to use it. But, you need to make the challenges work around them, not them work around the challenge. But anyways, Brick, the idea of their team is to try to climb with Brick, because that way, anything that gets thrown will theoretically crash up on Brick and will be fine. So, yeah, in the meantime, we end up having Pan and Post-it Note end up trying Vera themselves, because they're not exactly a big faith of that. That helmet flops, and in the meantime, Plasma Ball and the other fella are building a little paper airplane to try to figure out what a little paper is. It's a ginormous paper airplane to try to sort themselves as the two people with a scenic amount of logic. So they end up trying to not get distracted by Glacier being annoying, and they manage to do it. The fellas over at Team 47 end up having the idea, yo, we're the biggest team, we can maybe stack up all together, since some of us are pretty tall, and we can possibly reach the top, especially since we have a nice weight distribution. This actually somehow works perfectly, and they end up making the sides of the tower. So Bubble Wrap, the lightest, ends up being at the top, and fetching Chainsaw from below, and they're safe. Good job, good strategy, and this team, yet again, manages to use their collective power and relative lack of people that will object to the idea to combine and do it. See what I tell you? See what I tell you? This team utilizes a camaraderie that the other teams just don't. So if the plan works and includes all of them on it, they'll be able to do it more than other teams. Other teams would not agree to this plan and therefore would not be able to do it. Like, it's very intriguing. So let's go. Then eventually the paper airplane is built before the brick climb can ever actually take place. So they end up fetching flashlight. Caramel Cube ends up going, look, it's pretty obvious to me and Plasma Cube that Glass Shard just isn't into you. Interesting. I mean, like, okay. I don't know if Caramel Cube is aware necessarily of like how much of Night Helmet's words in episode 3. However, like, I will say that just directly saying like, hey, Glass Shard isn't into you is a bit of a kind of like a impacting move, right? I'm surprised about that, I'm surprised that it's so direct, I'm surprised that it's not like a bit more swervy. Like, hey, you should talk about Glass Shard, because Glass Shard doesn't seem to be currently thinking about you, something like that, you should really like try to figure that out. Because like the thing about Glass Shard's problems, like Glass Shard's problems, like they stem directly outside of just, I won't talk to, I'm not necessarily thinking about Flash all the time, because like they arrive from just like a general distraction to life, right? I mean, you're literally in an abandoned facility with monsters on it, and you're checking your phone. Like, what is going on in this bro's phone? Like, what is he doing? Is he doing something serious? Like, there's more than just failure to observe his girlfriend. There's a failure to observe. Like, something's going on. So like he doesn't even notice that they won the challenge. So it's not just that; it's a bit more. Anyways, Team Question Mark is up for elimination. Everybody tries. I like the post-credit scene with Slipper and Brick watching paint drying, being like, "Yo, this is pretty cool," because Brick's hobbies or better things to do are quote unquote paint drying. The guys this episode are pretty solid. I don't mind it, and this voting screen is great. The one last episode and the one this episode, they're all great. Who's getting out? Don't know. Milk is pretty much not even in this episode, so that's a problem. Ace tries to fly. They're banned from doing it. Who gets out here? Man, that's a great question, because they seem to really flop. They just did a slow strat, Like they just did a slow strategy. They were prevented from using the Ace free win, which is unfortunate. Yeah, no, this is complicated. I mean, it's Pan's fault. Okay, because here's the thing. The thing about it is that Brick's very heavy, so globe climbing with Brick was going to be a problem. But in the meantime, Post and No could climb with Pan faster. That's kind of the thing that was going on. However, like, Pan is losing. So it is Pan's fault that they get eliminated. So I'll have to just, by process of elimination, say that Pan gets out. However, I don't think so. Like, I don't think it'll happen. However, by process of elimination, Pan's the only one that screwed up for their team, right? Because it's the only chance they would have had of winning is if those two didn't fall. So I have to say that Pan, for falling and getting spooked by the scary dragon that wasn't scary, it was a funny guy though, ends up being the one that's going. We'll see. Then we end up having the credits, then the post-credit scene about the paper drying, and then that's that. Short episode. I think is that the shortest episode ever. No, there's another episode that's a bit shorter. Okay, but it's time to go to episode 5, which was released. We gotta check the dates. This one was released in July 2019, so it's another about 3 months gap. 3-4 months. Episode 5, Subordinate Solvers. Go. Okay, that is episode 5 of Paper Puppets Take 2, Subordinate Solvers. So, that is intriguing. I like that. It's a nice episode to sort of switch up the vibe. Not necessarily directly by, changing anything. I would say that animation remains relatively the same because, you see, for once, this show has decided for at least that time frame that the current animation quality is good enough. So it's keeping it going in that direction, just keeping it with that level of smoothness, which I can agree, absolutely, especially at the time, that animation quality absolutely is good enough. Yes. However, it decides to make the episode a little bit more distinct by giving it a little bit of a different focal point, right? You see how the characters that are focused on this episode are directly Santa Hat and Brick, right? Characters that haven't had too much screen time to do. And in general, some of the characters get shown off quite a bit. Like, I would say Pan, gets the time of day in this episode. There from the beginning, show him off a little bit of their silliness a bit more than it did, because of course they're supposed to be kind of the random character, but they haven't really done too much. And anyways, Santa Hat and Brick have been entrusted to Santa Hat and Loaf have been entrusted to do everything, including the challenge, elimination, everything else. So it's time for the elimination. Loaf tries to get to cooperate with Santa Hat on it. However, Loaf's a bit too excited to actually do it. So honestly, Loaf should have just done it. Either way, Milk gets the least votes to eliminate and the most likes. So it seems that the power, the sort of like arc from a couple episodes ago is still carrying over. People still like Milk, which is nice. Their prize is that they'll see where a piece goes. Then we end up having the prize is just stacks of cash that Loaf found, and we end up having the eliminated contestant be Brick. Yes, Pan almost got eliminated. I'm lucky surprised that it was close at all, but yeah, with about 150 more, we're having Brick get eliminated. They were mean, so mean character get out. This is how it goes. Yes, this episode's already, starting to get ourselves a little bit more towards the modern era. However, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, especially with big shows, it's still, definitely a perspective that mean character equals get out immediately is, yeah, especially when like Brick helped. It even had a nice little post-credit scene. I thought Brick should have been saved. This is a bad elimination, unfortunately. It's just not good. Pan, like, it's not that I don't like Pan. I like Pan, but Pan objectively should have been eliminated. Like, they threw for the team. Everybody else did fine. Brick was not the worst performer, right? Like they helped. Like, it really wasn't good. It wasn't good. I would say. So yeah, they get eliminated, they throw themselves, and we end up having the challenge, which gets explained by the Gold Ingot cousins, I guess. I mean, I'll say cousins, because usually in these shows, there's always a cousin. The characters never have brothers. I don't know why. I hit the microphone. But Oh wait, we end up having the challenge, which is a nonogram. I think is what it's called. Is that what it's called? I don't know, but it's one of those things where it's one of those puzzles where you gotta fit it correctly, right, and get the pieces in the correct coordination so that they fill up the board. So yeah. Severin plan and proceed to do it, and we end up having ourselves a character get over chainsaws trolling. Fuck, how do I not ever remember the name? It's something Trafi? I don't, whatever. It's they all come. This episode is gonna have 100 ways to say this character's name that are not the correct one, and. The treasure chest ends up getting the team to work together, and then they end up complaining to Basketball and Slipper, saying that we're always safe anyways. So treasure chest ends up saying, yeah, but we don't gotta be complacent. However, they did win, because, Journal and Ukulele, they're just smart. Globe ends up complaining to the host, saying that Team 47 have way more members, so it's not fair that we get up for elimination when they all will obviously win because they have more members. Yeah, this is the object show thing that's happening that's a bit rare, because it usually doesn't happen, right, where a team is just objectively stronger than another because they have way more people on it. Usually object shows force this to not happen, right? They force the teams to be relatively even. But this is what happens in a pretty honest situation that could happen in a real world setting. Which is nice. I really enjoy the fact that, they are directly making the system flawed in a way to keep it realism, which is nice. I like it. Now, the complaint is fair, however, in a lot of cases, it's not really, because, for example, in this challenge, treasure chest, we saw that for the entire duration of the actual putting pieces on the board, treasure chest was not there, slipper was not there, basketball was not there. Those three not actually doing the challenge means that the amount of Team 47 members that were doing the challenge is the same amount as the member count of the other teams. So it's not that they have more people so they just win. Two of them were sitting there on the grass not moving. That ties them with Team Question Mark. They are not skilled because they have more people. They are skilled because they are a very well coordinated team, for crying out loud. They banter, sure, like Chainsaw and the other fella that I always forget the name of. They'll banter or whatever. But, in general, they are a team that likes each other, which is extremely rare. But it's a team that doesn't beef and just does shit. It's they're not a good team because they have too many members. They're a good team because they know how to fucking get shit done. And I'm not here gonna sit here and see the characters in the show saying that they're winning only because they have more members. Come on. But yeah. Anyways, we end up having eventually, after Loaf ends up getting the idea of doing a double elimination of the Team 47s go up, which Team 47s immediately disputes, being like, what the fuck, you're getting us to lose 2 members if we lose 1 time, what, because we're good? And, that's a very valid idea, but it's not the solution is to do a team swap. The solution is very much so to do a team swap, right? To even out the teams again. Because any contestant in the show shouldn't be punished for being bad, for their team's wrongdoings, because, they didn't get eliminated, but, we shouldn't have a challenge to get more and more predictable. So, the idea is absolutely to have a team swap. Delete teams, make new teams, and all that stuff. That have to get a little bit closed off. So that way, Team 47, maybe they can stick together, but they have to stick together in a smaller batch, right? And therefore, the other fellas have to kind of spread off to the other teams. There's the team swaps are the way to go. Team swaps in this type of situation are very useful, So, yeah, double elimination not the way to go. But then the Santa Hat, of course, starts beefing with this, being like, you guys make up rules, go to in here. So then they end up having a big argument, and at the end of it, Santa Hat says that... well, at least Goldingot cares about me. And then they proceed to immediately realize, oh, fuck, that was not a sentence I should have said. Everybody proceeds to leave in shookness, and Santa Hat is now left there to deliberate. In the meantime, a flashlight, plasma ball, and friggin' caramel cube end up doing the puzzle on their own as they decide to ignore glass shard because Pettiness, yes. Pettiness. Glass Shard didn't care about me, so I won't care about Glass Shard, and I will make the whole situation confusing. Let's go, relationship goals. It's okay, cool, bro. The knight ends up not doing much, so that way those three are just left to try to do the challenge on their own. However, they are probably a bit too distracted by being, wrong. Ace ends up being like, well, can I use my magic? And they go like, well, Golden Gate isn't here, and Santa has a bit distracted, so you can do it here this time. Ace ends up doing it. You know what I love? I love this scene. I love this scene of Ace moving the piece, because they have that smile, bro. I love that smile. Look at bro. Bro is so happy to be able to use the magic. Bro is so pleasant. It's like, yippee. I like that. And eventually, after the moment when having Santa be like, okay, I have to fix it with Loaf, and then it'd be like, hey, look, I know that I said that they don't care about you, and maybe I'm right. Love goes like, yeah, you are right, but like Santa goes like, well, he doesn't really care about me either. Yeah, he acknowledges me, but I'm not cared about. I'm just there to do the busy work, right? Which means that it's kind of because Golden Gate doesn't really care about either of them. Golden Gate just sees Loaf as completely useless, alright, they can't do stuff, and then they see Santa as the assistant that has to do all of the bullshit, right? So that means that Santa has to do a million things, and Loaf is just there, right, to supposedly not exist, right? That's kind of the main critique that is happening. So yeah, that's kind of something that's going on. Then they end up agreeing that, hey, look, at least we're not cared about together. So they end up sharing that experience, and they go together to help out. Eventually, we end up having Glass Shard repeat the flashlight line, and eventually we end up having Flashlight get up and officially break up, and Flashlight officially breaks up with Glass Shard trying to do it. Glass Shard ends up trying to run back to catch a Flashlight, to talk to Flashlight. Actually murders Plasma Ball in the process. Debatable whether this is intentional. It might be. But yeah, Plasma Ball dies. Caramel Cube, we're having a last-second attempt from the Knight to try to sort it out. It's not great. That team, to be fair, they just lose anyways. Ace's team. Yeah, no, Ace's team was really just chilling. Team Question Mark was not really doing that much. Ace was allowed to use the magic. They had an easy movement idea, so they were able to move faster, and they just had to lock it down. And they have people like Posted Note that are smart. So in general, that team, I think Team H lose anyways. I don't see them with the material to win this challenge. To be honest, even if they were completely coherent, I don't think they win this challenge, because even then, Flashlight, three of the members of the team, they were doing the challenge all of the time. They were a bit distracted by trying to ignore the fella, but they were still trying to do the challenge, and they completely failed. They weren't even close. They were 3 pieces away. So they really, I don't think if they were less distracted that they wouldn't win. I think they lose anyways. But yeah, love the voting screens that are made in universe, these ones with paper. Love those. Those are always very fun. Who's getting eliminated? This is an interesting question, because of course it's trying to get this episode does, for the first time I would say, actually try to give off ideas for the eliminated contestant, right? Because okay, this would be obvious, right? Because Glass Shard was bad, but now we've kind of had Flashlight be a bit petty, so you can be like, okay, which side are you on? They're both flawed, right? And I think that the eliminated contestant will be Glass Shard, because I think in general, I think it's fair, because there's gonna be a lot of people that some people might think that Flashlight is being petty. I do think that in general most people will consider that Glass Shard, after getting caught out in the last episode, is suddenly active in the challenge to try to save himself, which means that he doesn't really care. He's just trying to save himself. That he's noticed that Flashlight has a problem with him, right? So it's not really an act of caring. It's just an act of doing the bare minimum. So I think that Glass Shard ends up getting eliminated. The rest of them should be safe in principle. I think. I don't know why you would vote like that much to the other people. I mean, like they're all like, of course, they're all part of the pettiness, because of course, okay, the knight wants to date Flashlight, and the other two are directly helping Flashlight break up with him. But like, I mean, we'll need to see. We'll need to see in due time. Then we get the post-credit scene where we have some epic golfing skills from the fella. We end up seeing some new characters. Yeah, this is why golfing is bad. And, this host also seems like there's something going on with this host. I think this host is also getting a little bit of character growth in this episode. Because, like, in Paper Puppets, I will be honest, Golding is kind of a nothing burger. There's not a lot going on with the host. I mean, like, there's, like, basic hostings, both host character traits. But on average, it's not, like, that much, right? Whereas in here, I think that it's a bit more... we're trying to get this host to be a bit more host. I will be honest. Golding isn't exactly like developing to be a super unique character now. Like they're just turning into, I don't know, like Mifon. Like just kind of like host that is kind of silly, doesn't do challenges very well, but keeps it in check. Right? Doesn't realize what they're doing. About they're being goofy, and they're also pathetic, right? Like they're kind of, I don't know if I'm really like a big fan of where Golding is going, because it feels like very similar, but I don't know. All right, episode 6 is titled "Don't Press It." If this episode was released in July 2019, episode 6 was released on December 2019. So it took a bit longer, took about 6 months, but it was still in 2019. Here we go. Okay, a little while ago, I have watched episode 6 of Paper Puppets Take 2, Don't Press It. So, we start ourselves with, the other teams that are finding out that Team 47 is bad, actually, because they have too many members. So, we need to put on a focal point on getting this team to lose, alright? Because they don't realize that Team 47 is skilled, not because they have numbers, but because they have capability. Nope, they don't realize that. So they are going to attack by trying to team up with the other team to help each other out and then try to sort out everything, alright? So that is their tactic, and what is, by the way, another episode that, in terms that keeps itself around the same level of animation. Didn't notice too much of a change with it, personally. Re-assets are not included. I mean, I think there is a re-asset or two, but it's on the intros, on eliminated contestants. So, there is re-assets, but, like, in general, the main ones are fine, in general. So... yeah, I think the intro is kind of like a dynamic-ish thing, because it's kind of it's changing, right? Yeah, there's like elements from the other challenges, taking place, which is cool, and I like that. So, as we are going to host the elimination with the intro that is way too swag for any level for it, to forget the title card, we end up having the elimination sped around hosted by Golding, who cannot bother. He's extremely pissed off after the golf match didn't exactly go great. We get the most votes ever at 6,000. The prize goes to Glass Shard. Yes, the prize goes to Glass Shard, and then the hate goes to Glass Shard. Okay, this is a trend. That's really interesting. Why? I don't know, because it's like... Usually, I think that, yeah, the people, basically, I think what happens, right, is this kind of, like, radicalization, in a way, right, of the voting results, where it's like, if you don't want Glass Shard to be eliminated, right, then that means, pretty much automatically, that you don't think what happened to Glass Shard is wrong. And if you don't think No, that like what you think is being done to Glass Shard is wrong, and if what you think is being done to Glass Shard is wrong, you like Glass Shard and you feel bad for him because if you think that what he's receiving is wrong and you feel bad, so you want to give him the prize, right? So that's why there's this kind of thing where like in general, what is happening to Glass Shard is his own fault. Right, so he gets eliminated for it by majority of the people, but the people who think it isn't then vote for the prize, so it ends up getting it, and in a way, it's kind of a bit of a, showing of how society goes. In a way, if you think about it, it does actually reflect on society a little bit, because this is how things goes, right? Where there's two completely opposite opinions that end up being the most popular, one on one and the other on the other, right? And you can see them directly in that, which I think is intriguing. But anyways, enough societal talk, okay? Glass Shard ends up getting eliminated. They're not allowed to speak because the knight ends up doing that. The knight ends up not picking up on any social cues. I see that you're available. And Plasma Ball is having none of that. Be like, stop, please. Hits them with the golf club. And we end up having the challenge, which Goldinga says that there's your challenge, and they just place a button. Chainsaw is going to go place it until we end up having a note that, hey, look, the challenge isn't gonna be press the button. That's too easy. So how about we don't press the button? That's maybe the challenge. Challenge is, like the button's right there, who's gonna fall into it, right? So let's not press the button, and then that is going to be the challenge and the idea. So what I mean is challenge pretty alright. The only thing that's a little bit complicated about it is the detail that, of course, the factoid that Goldinga is actively pissed when setting up the challenge would allow it to be a press the button challenge, right? So I do kind of like the timing of the challenge because it's hard to tell. If it was on another day, it would be relatively obvious that you're not supposed to press it, right? Because Goldinga would be fine, and the challenge is this. But the fact that Goldinga gets pissed means that it could be a press the button challenge, and he's just trying to get it done with as quick as possible, because that's what he's trying to do, right? So that's kind of the thing about it. So I understand the confusion. I think it's the best time to do this challenge right now when Goldinga is kind of not saying much, right? And just sort of letting it happen. So, yeah. Either way, we end up having the Chainsaw does not want to leave showgrounds because, it's platinum and bronze are there. I like silver is interesting. Silver, I feel like silver is gonna be relevant. I don't know. I just have a feeling. I'm looking at this episode. Silver doesn't have any lines in this episode. But the way that Silver gets kind of separated from the rest of them, right? You see how, like, she doesn't hold the bat and she's not really staring angry. She's just kind of sad. And then the way that she looks when Bronze and Platinum are having this debate. I feel like something's up. Something is absolutely up. I am a believer in the idea that Silver would be relevant. Okay, Silver will be relevant. Now, not everything in this show needs to be, of course, real. Not everything in this show needs to happen the way that they want it to happen. I mean, remember in episode 1, freaking Loaf had a crush on Santa Hat? Like, that's not a thing. but that is not right now. But either way, they end up staying there, and they end up eventually sitting down with Slipper and Basketball, who are just kind of, doing their classic sit-along, so that's cool. And then we end up having a successful debate. So Globe and Caramel, who I think has another new voice actor. Yes, shout out Caramel Cube is really farming the voice actor Infinity Stones. But yeah, now with the golf club under here, ends up going over as a Chainsaw. They end up being, what could it be? So Chainsaw goes over to press the button because, hey, that's a good theory. So then as they're about to do that, Treasure Chest goes like, don't fucking do that. Okay. In the meantime, Journal ends up debating the Bronze and Platinum, which is not exactly hard to do. And they end up, because they need to go do research, and they need to go do research at the Mr. H laboratory building, which there's apparently a side room to get into, apparently. That nobody knew about except for them. So that's intriguing. Jono ends up doing that. I mean, part of me, of course, because it's on the side of the mountain, thinks that maybe it could have something to do with the cave. But, like, is there anything to do with the cave? Remember the cave from episode 1? It's like, I have to protect the world from this. That was Jono as well. So, like, what is going on there? I don't know. I mean, like, it could be some of that. Do you even trust anything that happens in episode 1? Episode 1 real? Is episode 1 fake? I don't know. But like, something's going on there. I feel like that's not relevant. But maybe it is. Post-it note ends up sneaking by to get in there. But right before that happens, we end up having Chainsaw complain to Gold Ingot, saying that, hey, look, we need to solve this. I want to form my own team. And since Gold Ingot doesn't not having any of it, they officially allow a new team to form, Team Bracket. And they get Slipper and Basketball to join their team and to create a 3-member team. So that means that Team 24 is officially disbanded in the sense where those 3 have left. However, this doesn't change much. In my opinion, Team 24 is still looking good. It's a team that's looking good. Because, like, really, what did that team lose? Basketball never helped out the team. Slipper never helped out the team. Chainsaw is the only hit. Chainsaw is a hit. But either way, they weren't necessarily helping out the team, you know, like the Bear, like they're 3 of the least contenders. In my opinion, Team 24 is still a force. It's still strong. Now, of course, they're due for a loss, absolutely. You know, they're gonna get an unlucky challenge, but like they're still the team that's the most organized. They should be able to win it, absolutely. So yeah. And then anyways, we end up going down to post-it notes, and Journal ends up finding post-it note and be like, what the hell is this? And Journal ends up saying of a story again, about how, you know, they woke up here and they came across the room and they saw Mr. Hand and they talked to me. A post-it note will be like, well, I mean, like, that's weird, but I mean, the room's real, so something's going on. You know, it'd be weird to just imagine it. So I mean, I can help you, I guess. Do what you need to do. Do you trust me? Journal, trust, post-it note. Let's go. Yippee. So, it's Team 47, but it's not Team 27. I just remembered. But yeah, they end up agreeing to do whatever there is they're supposed to do. Now, what the fuck are they supposed to be doing in there? I have no idea. I mean, because it's like, they have a plan? I don't know. Because, like, you're going in the room to do paperwork? Like, can't you just do that outside? Like, are you, like, creating data? Like, what are you doing? Are you, like, taking notes to be like, screen looks broke? Like, what are you doing? What is the point? Are you, like, opening the Mr. H, like, property boxes and, like, seeing what's in it and, like, taking notes? Like, what is, like, what is it that you're working on? You know, I don't currently know, but okay. Eventually, unfortunately, Pan presses the button because they're so random, and they feel like doing that. So Goldinger gets woken up from their nap, which for some reason is on the floor, and they end up having their team be up for elimination because yes, that is the challenge. So they lose, and then the twist is that Pan is safe though. Pan gets immunity despite throwing for their team a second time. Pan gets to survive. They get a signed photograph, and we end up having everybody else be up for elimination. So that would be Ace, Bottle, Globe, Milk, and Post-it Note, characters that haven't done too much. In this episode, only Globe and Post-it Note really did much in this episode. Milk had 1 line, Bottle had 1 line, both near the end, and Ace had 0, I think. So, that's rough. That's rough. You could say that it's Globe's fault. Okay, it's kind of the question. Is Team 47 a liked team? That was the question. Is Team 47, like, does the viewer base agree that Team 47 was a team to be stopped, or did they like Team 47? That was the question. That's the unknown. I don't think they cared about Team 47. At least from what I see, I'm not seeing fan favorite material there that much. So I don't think that Globe will be fought for it. So then, if the only character that I speak is Ace, and if you remember that these episodes they take a while, right? I would have to tell you that Ace by Post Elimination is going. I don't think it's Post, and I think Post gets the prize. I think it's Ace. I think Ace is going. I don't want it to be, but I think Ace has got to go. Because it's just not speaking. But we will need to see, but I think Ace is going. What was the post-credit scene? I don't remember. It's Coding the freaking team question mark using all of their money. Sick ass shot, by the way, of Coding looking down properly and everything. But yeah, they're all blinged out. Let's go. So Interesting. All right, now with that, we can jump ourselves over to episode 7. So, as a reminder, this episode was in December. Episode 7 released in August. So, we are in the middle of pandemic. We'll need to see. So yeah, it's about that is a while though, isn't it? That's like 8 months. That's a while. Anyways, all fun and games. Go. Okay, so that is episode 7 of Paper Puppets Take 2. So, we have a relatively big episode. I mean, things happen quite a bit in this episode. And we are here in the midst of it. Are there redesigns? Are there re-assets? Yes! Ding, ding, ding. Of course there are, especially on Ace, who now looks significantly thinner. But, yeah, there always is. They can't start getting their grubby little hands on these characters. What, you gotta settle down. The assets have looked fine since episode 4. You don't need to change it every time. Why do we keep doing this? I know, why? Just leave it. But anyways, Ace ends up telling Globe, yo, look, I don't think it's a good idea to be teaming up with a caramel cube right here, Globe. I mean, like, yeah, you broke up the 47s, but, like, you don't, I like how they say the 47s if it's a football team, but, like, the 47s, and then Globe goes, like, nah, the caramel cube's nice, okay? But yeah, eventually we end up having Santa Hat inform Gold Ingot, which, by the way, I'm really liking how Gold Ingot's getting animated. We're really taking advantage of the kind of friggin' like shape of him, which is really aligned with the camera angles. Like this shot of the couch, and them laying down like this. That's a fire shot. Love that shot. I love these types of shots. I think that when an object shoot has the capability of doing shots that look like this, I think it should just do it all the time. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion, but I should just do it. You just do constantly because it's great. It looks great, and it adds so much variety because it's different every time, right? So, yeah, then we have ourselves, they need to get a gift. So how will they get a gift? Well, the carnival's in town, of course, the pit town of grass. But yeah, in the grasslands, we end up having the idea, indeed, be there for Gold Ingot to try to, of course, get something at the carnival. We're end up having our intro. Our intro has, I believe, a mod. Yes, it has a mod rework because the Gold Ingot's buddies, which are bronze, silver, and platinum are there, and I'm telling you, silver's in the middle of them. Silver, most relevant character theory remains true. I believe in it. Silver will be relevant. I'm telling you right here, right now. Okay, all right. But yeah, we end up having ourselves, dude. The title cards look so good. The episode title cards are actually insane. They look amazing every time. I don't know. They managed to do it. But anyways, we end up having the elimination where we get a record amount of votes for the record amount of times. And we end up having the prize go to Post-it note just about over milk. So, damn. I like it. Dude, it's really intriguing to see that bottle. That bottle getting 248 likes, but also like pretty much nearly the least dislikes as well. Really does point itself out, That's kind of like, that's the character nobody cares about, Like you can gather a lot of information because I feel like at a certain point it doesn't matter. like there's a certain degree. Like I think like BFDIA degree, for example, right? I think in BFDIA the numbers are too big. There's too many people, and at that level, it just stops mattering because there's too many votes, right? And it just ends up being that the votes to like are the votes to eliminate in reverse, right? Whereas, like, here you can proper gather data because, like, it's only the people who are really into it are watching it. rather than a lot of the additional stuff. Santa Hat looks at Golding angrily, and it goes that yes. So the invitation to the party is the prize for being safe. Of course, pan's safe. At this point, how much stuff's in this pan? This pan is just collecting bullshit. But anyway, I'm sure everybody was happy that I won immunity. Proceeds to stare at the camera. I love Pan. I love Pan. Pan's terrible at the challenge. In Paper Puppet Season 1, Pan was a challenge master. However, now that the show has a little bit more added on logic to it, then it ends up just crumbling down completely, that character type. But yeah, we end up having the eliminated contestant be Ace. Ace gets up. Yep, unfortunate. A lot of people voted for Globe. More people than I would expect it, actually, to be honest. I thought Globe was going to be safer. But yeah, Ace, it does indeed get eliminated. Here, Ace ends up using the elimination instead of dropping down, and they drop out. You see, it's like twice in this episode, Ace used teleportation when they didn't use teleportation at all for episodes 1 through 6. Ace is a wasted opportunity currently, absolutely. Just really nothing going on there. There's characters with magic are cool. Do stuff. Use it. If you have the capability, don't make you a character that gets 0 lines. 0 lines is going to last time. Isn't that preposterous? I'm out here using the word preposterous. Getting 0 lines, dude. But okay then. We have eventually the challenge, which is to get it's a simple challenge. Go to the carnival, get the most tickets. Doesn't matter how, just get the most tickets. Whoever has the least tickets will be up for elimination. The topper T-Hat ends up being the host of the carnival, of course, so they'll be there at the prize area whenever possible. In the meantime, we end up having a bunch of people, of course, head into different sections. So Plasma Ball and Caramel Cube, and they're going together into the mirror maze, and a lot of things are in general happening in this episode. However, I think that this episode it does showcase the growth, right? Because this episode is a complicated episode, right? It's an episode with a lot of things, a lot of moving parts are required to create this episode, right? Because at the end of the day, you can't really have too many characters together in this episode, right? You can't have a team sticking together. That doesn't make sense, right? So you need to have a split up, which means that if all the team is split up, we're going to have a lot of different players. Like you here, right? And there's a lot of stuff going on, right? Which also means a lot of backgrounds, a lot of different environments, right? And this is something that, of course, this series has never been afraid of doing. From episode 1, which is that. From episode 3, which is that, right? All of these things, it's it is indeed it does indeed allow itself to go through this, right? However, despite that, this episode really showcases that we are capable of writing this now, right? We're capable of writing this. It's proper written movie. It's paced properly, right? It's paced properly. It manages to make each section feel different. It is, of course, joined by a carnival setting, which helps it. I'll be honest, the carnival setting helps it keep it variety, because in the other times, for example in episode 3, right, there's not too much variety that you can do, right? You're supposed to person in spooky corridor gets chased by a monster, cut to a person in different spooky corridor getting chased by a monster. You see, it's different. So that's a bit more complicated. So the carnival setting does definitely help it out in making it a little bit more, defined. But in general, it manages to pace itself well. It keeps itself good. In terms of plot relevant scenes, it does plot relevant scenes. It does humor. It does everything. And I think this is a really good episode. Get me out. I think this is a really good episode. There's only one thing about this episode that I dislike. There's one thing about this episode that I dislike quite a bit. And it's just the challenge is pointless in the sense of okay, well, somebody wins and somebody loses. However, I don't like the way that I'm seeing it. You can kind of make out a vibe, but there's no direct way, right? Because you cannot see how many tickets each person got. They'll get a stash of tickets. I don't know how much that is, right? Is that more than the other stash of tickets? Are they ahead? Are they behind? What's the status, And it's one of those things, personally, I always believe that the challenge should put an emphasis on being real, right? We should have a challenge where we can see the progression of the challenge, right? Because I feel I don't know. Every reality show will show you how the challenge is going, right? Like they will show you like which team is ahead, you know. Like in the meantime, but sometimes obviously they do this thing where they just kind of have the characters do stuff, and then at the end they tally it all up, and it's like, well, you can't like. I can't visualize how many tickets they have because it's an anime. At least in real life, for example, you're trying to just get as many balls as possible from a ball pit and put it in your basket, right? In real life, you can just look at it, right? In animation, when they grab a pile of balls, for example, it would be just like a pile. You know, you wouldn't be able, like, it would be the same pile for the both teams, right? It wouldn't exactly share. It wouldn't be different. So you can't exactly check it. So you have to just tell me more directly, right? And same thing goes for this channel. You know, I feel like you gotta tell me more directly. You gotta give me some standings or something, right? Because that way, you know, and it doesn't hurt anything. It doesn't hurt any. It literally is just an addition, right? Because it's like you can do the episode exactly the same, but showing me how many tickets. You put a UI of how many tickets the team just got. You know, somewhere on the screen, and then boom, we got the same exact episode, but better. You know, it's just an addition. It's a plus. You know, like it's not as But yeah, that's my personal opinion on that. But yeah, eventually cheating is done. There's a lot of cheating done. Treasure Chest is a bit distracted over at the 47s because they're upset that Team Bracket to just, you know, split off from them. But look, the other fellas won't split off, so that's good, right? We eventually end up having Treasure Chest wake up. Journal. Because Journal has been super tired from all the work that they've had to do over at the machinery. Over at the H&M. Over at the MRH headquarters. And that was so stupid. H&M Laboratories, yeah, so true. Go shop, go get clothes there. But yeah, they'll be doing that. Now, Post-it Note is looking fine. So I mean, I don't know how much help they really did. So I mean, presumably they did. I guess they didn't do as much help, right? But yeah, Journal's really bothered, and in fact, they sleep on the train ride as well. And we end up having Mr. Hand being like, "You should be working. You should be working. Time's adding up. You'll be all of time." And for some reason, Journal, you're the one that has to save the world because nobody else will think, and nobody else will do anything, and there's nothing to even research. What the hell are you supposed to research? Mr. Hand said like, "Oh, I'll be back and shit." There's literally nothing else that you can fucking do, but you gotta do it. Like, what? It's just like Journal is so like I gotta save the world mode when it's like, brother, bro, why? I understand you saw Mr. Hand, but what are you gonna do about it? You know, you can't just go. You can't. You know, it's like, oh, I gotta do something. And then just, like, stare. You know, just freaking whatever the hell work you're doing. What are you doing that is making you sleep? No, Jen, I'm so curious. What are you doing? You're just looking at paper. Are you reading paperwork or something? Are you, like, are you looking through Mr. Hand's stuff? Like, is that the only thing that you could be doing? Because what are you doing that is losing you this much sleep? It's like, dude, because, like, He's like, this is the perplexity. It's just, you're like, yes, okay, maybe you're the one with the details, and you're the one that has to solve the world. Okay, let's go with that. But either way, you don't know how the fuck to do that, so what are you doing right now? You know, like, what are you spending your time on? I have no idea, mate. It's intriguing. Okay, I don't know, but look, I'll trust you. I fell asleep. It was a nightmare anyway, so I don't even think it was Mr. Hand. But either way, there's a couple of tickets. Even Treasure Chest found him in a hidden compartment. So I'll tell you, even this guy cheats. Okay, everybody cheats. Then we end up going over to the dropper. So we end up having the scene with the dropper, where it shows off a little bit of this episode's main topic. So by this episode, also by of course splitting this into a lot of these different mini sections, right? It also allows for character development. For character development, right? Because by having characters be in this one-on-one situation, which in a team is a thing that struggles to exist, right? So by placing these characters in a challenge where that's just what you got to do, you end up going into this one-on-one section, and you end up building on these nice little interactions. So we end up having one-on-one interactions. So of course, as you know, what happens when you have a one-on-one cute interaction between two characters? shipping material. I don't give a shit personally, but like it's cute. I mean, I like ukulele and I like this interaction between ukulele and bubble wrap. You know, like I'm not exactly one that's going like, yo, I'ma ship them and stuff. You know, like my personal opinion on shipping is that it's okay. You know, like it's cute and stuff. I don't personally, you know, like my instinct is never really to do it. However, I see why people do it, of course, because they just like cute interactions and want to see more of it. But yeah, personally, I'm not exactly too like bothered, but I do like the interactions. I do think that it's good writing, you know, like that ukulele scene is good writing, you know, helping you get over your fears, right, and stuff. Same thing goes for that interaction later on in the tunnel of love between Flashlight and Bottle, you know, being like, yo, hello, let's, you know, get it gets together, gets the hug, right? You know, proper comforts it, be like, hey, you can be yourself, you know, it's proper about growing, you know, like one side comes in, sees the other struggling, and be like, hello, I'm gonna help you up, right? And it's proper wholesome, right? I'm surprised it happened twice in the same episode, but yeah, it's some wholesome scenes, right? And it's overall some good scenes that are good. It's some good scenes that are good. We're gonna have, of course, some humor. Milk apparently is super strong. We discovered that, but hey, I mean, they say milk's good for your bones or whatever. So yeah, then they're getting a lot of tickets and stuff. Pan ends up going over to a Post-it note. Now, Post-it note was trying to guess how many balls are in the jar. Now, Post-it note might be smart, but here's the thing. I'm pretty sure that jar does not have balls in it. I'm pretty sure that jar is of like toothpaste. What is that? It's like a fucking mouth. No, that's mouthwash. There's mouthwash there. But okay, bro. And eventually, of course, Pan just continues counting up. You only have 3 guesses. Honestly, this might be my favorite scene in the episode because I love like as Pan is about to guess 10 and have them lose. Like Post-it note isn't even mad. Post-it note is just looking at Pan, knowing that this will inevitably happen. It's just like, okay, well, that's this is the fate. So that's fun. But yeah, unfortunate there for Post-it note, and Pan yet again ends up being a negative player for the team. In the meantime, Brock, that I will never remember the name of, ends up trying to win a this game. I don't know why it would not win you tickets, but either way, they end up being like, damn it, the game's rigged. And then the Hansel's like, somebody's finally figured it out. I'm sorry, are you trying to hide your facade or not? This episode's weird because it's really good, but at the same time, like, it's got so much nitpickiness. I'm noticing, like, I'm nitpicking the fuck out of this episode because there's a lot of weird details. Like, I'm sorry, hold on, are you Hatso? I thought you were trying to, you know, like, usually when you're evil, you're trying to hide the fact that you are evil. Why are you being like, yo, you gotta play dirty, you gotta rig some right? Okay, bro, like, why are you telling the guy this? Why, dude? Since when did they earn the right for this intel information? That was me, the intel information, yes, for this freaking insider knowledge. Like, what? But alright then, so friends are going over, they get a lot of tickets because they just break a ride, but then they break a ride and then they're getting chased by the clowns, which are the freaking thing, but of course the team Chaos, Team Bracket ends up managing to sort it out, and then eventually the time is over. Everybody runs out, including the fellas at the Mirror Maze, the fellas the Night Helmet that just, you know, stayed on the horse. They were very pretty good balance. And eventually with 237, Team Bracket easily won because they just cheated. Then with Team with 109, it's the team end up being safe, and then 102 Team 47s are safe, and then we end up having none other than team what is your name? Oh, Team Question Mark, yeah. Team Question Mark be up for elimination. Teammates got 109. Team 47 got 102. And then with 93, Team Question Mark is yet again up for elimination. It's unfortunate. We end up eventually getting the prize, which we wanted for the birthday party. After, you know, just running over the host. Honestly, they deserved it. And, we end up having the team question mark. All right, it's Pan's time. Go. Immediately. All right, it's time. It's time to go. There is no benefit to you remaining on this team. There is nothing. Bottle has had a reason for you to like them now. Post-it note is tried their best, man. It's a bad situation, okay? They're really trying, and they got it's freaking hijacked by Pan. Globe did okay, so at least they broke up the teams. They got the talk by Ace, which I don't even think is true. And the Milk is just did good. He's the only one that got tickets for their team. So I think that Bottom think awesome, but I think that Pan's got to go. Pan at this point has thrown 3 challenges. That's because they threw the tower challenge, they threw the button challenge, and now they've thrown. Well, they're not necessarily thrown, but because we're saying that the Post-it would have gone numbered. That's not necessarily true, but they've at least hindered the team yet again. So they've absolutely got to go. There's not much to say about it. It's GG's, right? And that's that. We end up having the post-credit scene of the birthday party, going against the president, and then they proceed to dip away because, of course, they don't want to. They grab a birthday cake, though, because they're fat slob. Me fun. I told you, this guy's just me fun. Spot the difference. Spot the difference just dropped. But, yeah, you end up dipping away, and there we have it. Alright, that's episode 7. A lot of little writing nitpicks to it, to be honest. It's... However, at the end of the day, it's all fun and games. It's time for episode 8, which is titled Rowdy Runaway. Go. Alright, that is episode 8 of Paper Puppets Take 2. October 5th is the release of this episode. I forgot to say it the other time. Which is very good, right? Considering the last episode was, the episode 7 was August. That means that that's like a 2-month production window. So I guess COVID is good when it comes to, object show production. Ooh, we have learned. Alright, so, we end up starting off here at the office where, after Loaf, after Golding presumably didn't go to Loaf's party, they went to Loaf's party but dipped off early. Loaf and Santa Hat are done with the bullshit, so at least that day they're just watching TV together and not really bothering much. While this allows for Bronze to host, as the other fellas are there. Arguing. Platinum's upset. Bronze is not a great post, to be honest, but they call dibs, and dibs law says that Silver gets 1 line in this episode. Okay, maybe I'm gonna need to rework my Silver is secretly the most important character theory, but you can never be too sure, but yeah. Either way, we end up having ourselves the intro, which I don't think has any new renovations. It's time to ask the classic question: is there a redesign? Is there a reassetting in this episode? Yes, there is, because the eliminated contestants that we go down to check out. I believe there might be one in the main cast, right? Because I don't remember. I think the bumps in the caramel cube were different, right? So I do think that there's one reassetting there. So tick that box. So far, every single episode has had it, so that's fun. And we can head ourselves over. I think Bronze might have also had it a little bit, but it's kind of hard to tell. Most votes ever, 9,000. It only keeps going up. Now, Pan's very overexcited. Bottle wins the prize. Of course you do. You get the chips, and then we end up having the eliminated contestant by over 1,000, with double the votes than posted, is Pan, who gets 2,200. Insane. Insanity. I'm not gonna lie. Because, it was time to go. Pan should have gone over Brick in that elimination. So that's supposed to have the Pan just phoned it in for 2 more episodes. That it was 3 episodes of that you were in. So it was not looking good for you. where they're getting eliminated. However, as you get upset, you end up, of course, using Pan's epic physics bending ability to actually send gold ingot down there. Challenge is to catch Pan. The team that catches Pan will be safe. Some fellas end up giving it a go. So we end up having Flashlight now go over to team up with Globe, and that team over to properly, get together. We end up having Globe be like, hey, should we help him out? I swear that's a new VA, but I don't know. And Botto goes, look, Flashlight wouldn't do this, and as far as you're aware, Karamaki wouldn't do this. So I think that, look, Ace was fear-mongering. Ace is gone anyways, because you saw how well that went, so I think we should do it. And then they decide, yes, let's team up. So they team up together to try to format some bait, which is a great idea, because Pan will fall for the bait. However, Pan does fall for the bait, but also fucking eats the box, so... that's life. I will admit that it wouldn't really have worked. You didn't place the chip below the box. You placed it 1 meter to the left. So, like, if Pan didn't eat the box, you wouldn't have actually been... you wouldn't have ever been below the box. It wasn't a very well placed bait, but it was a good idea, though. I will admit, it was a good idea there from the fellas. However, after that, they kind of run out of plans. In the meantime, treasure chest ends up grabbing some fish nest to try to catch them with it, like if it was fucking butterfly. But they end up getting distracted because team bracket ends up using the freaking golf cart, and treasure chest is not having it. They bring journal with them, and then freaking the what is your name? I am actually gonna go insane. I need to come up with a nickname. I need to come. Do I just call you Knight? Because I know you call it something Knight. Okay. we need to come up with a T with like a. Or like a nickname, all right? Like you and me, all right? We understand it, all right? If I say "ite," well, I'm talking about the Rock, all right? So yeah, they grab Treasure grab Journal and Ite, and they end up chasing over because Treasure Chest cannot be bothered to let them go, and then we end up doing this. So of course, this is marked off by the Team 47's first loss. Yes, Team 47 lose because the challenge is that the winners pick the losers, and Chainsaw's team manages to win it out on accident. But yes, they do manage to win it out for Team Bracket, and of course they choose Team 47's to be up for elimination. It's a rough one. Here for Team 47, for a team that has done so historically well, just kind of being coordinated. This is the challenge where they split apart completely, right? There's 2 people left behind with 5 fishnets. Then we have a Journal and Ite being left together at the freaking waterfall where the ultra evil monster from episode 1 is sitting, which Journal for some reason wants to go check out. I'm sorry, if this is so evil that nobody in the universe can know about this, what? Like, what is what is this? I am so lost by Journal. I'm so lost. I have no idea what Journal's goals are at any moment in time. I don't get it. I do not understand it. What is it, bro? Like, they're wasting time, and this thing is evil, and then it's not, and for some reason you need to go to the laboratory, take notes, or whatever the fuck you're doing. Like, what are you doing? Please, dude. But, of course, they don't actually end up going in there because of Ite, who ends up, of course, calling them out on it because, they've been weird. Journal's like, I'm fine, totally fine. And end up doing that. In the meantime, what I was saying is that, Team 47 ends up getting properly split up for the first time. They get split into 3 sections when sticking together always worked for them. So it's a bit unfortunate. It's just a cause of distraction. It's just a distracted set. Their plan, okay, to be 100% honest, their plan wasn't great. But of course, if they just went all together, they would not have fucking put a target on their backs. Although I will admit that they would probably still have been enough for elimination. Majority of the teams winning, because of course there's the teams that have the vendetta against Team 47, right? So because they were the biggest team, so realistically they had to win. I don't think they were gonna win. One thing which I do want to point out, however, about this, which I do enjoy, is that there's a very specific thing done in the writing of this, which is that you'll notice that it's never a moral high ground, it's a moral superior ground. You know, like you could say that, oh, they're cheating, they're at the lowest of lows, but you need to notice that treasure chest is also low on the scale, right? Because in the last challenge they were like, oh, you cannot cheat the carnival games, but then treasure chest literally stole from the secret compartment of the Viking machine, right? For the ride, for the train ride, okay? So yeah, they did that, and in this episode they do the same thing. They're complaining that Team Bracket, when stole the thing from the office, stole the golf cart from the guy. However, at the same time, you, treasure chest, you stole the fishnets from it's actually, it's not a fishnet, whatever. You know what I mean. Okay, it's not, but like you stole the fishnets from the office, and you said it that you got them from the office, which is really funny, right? It's a nice way to it's a nice writing being done to showcase a character's thinking process, right? Because remember, a character, the line of what's allowed is right below what you're currently doing. That's what a lot of people think about it. Everybody likes to place the line of what is fine right below what they currently do, so that way they're fine. So like, if they steal a small item, looking good. If they steal guns blazing, no. Right? Like, if they were stealthy about stealing the golf cart, sure. If they weren't, then no. Right? Like, that's kind of the logic, so I do really like it that the treasure chest isn't being really held here in terms of like isn't being regarded as a saint here, but as like a character that's just flawed, you know. Like, you're a flawed character who also does it. You're hypocritical at nature, which is really intriguing. But yeah, they end up fighting. In the meantime, we end up having the fellas down there. Gold Ingot wakes up with the eliminated contestants, plus, of course, the contestants not from the season doing there. They think it's a rejoin, valid. And then Gold Ingot goes like, yo, guys, I mean, like, what are y'all like doing? There's like a lounge and everything. I thought you were supposed to press the button, but they didn't even find a button. Galashar is now just super sad, just sitting in the corner. That's so sad. I'm so Flash didn't get eliminated. So yeah, in the meantime, yes, Ace just teleported away. Of course, he didn't teleport in the hole. I mean, fair. I can't really blame you if you can do that. But yeah, the lounge, it's a pretty good lounge. It's a pretty good lounge. You'll probably be able to have fun in the lounge again. And there's also a ladder to just get out that they don't see. So yeah, the eliminated contestants, they're pretty dumb. Yeah, they are pretty dumb. In the meantime, we end up having Pan's cousin. You see, I told you, they're never, you see, have you noticed a character? I'm telling you, dude. I told you this like a couple episodes ago. Well, I didn't tell you in this context, but like, there is fucking never a character who in these shows who has just a brother or a sister. It's always like, unless they're twins, unless they're literally twins, there's not a brother or a sister. Because it's like, oh, it's always the cousin. Oh god, I'm the cousin. You know, everybody's a cousin. Okay, dude. But yeah, this is the cousin of Pan, which I just thought was Pan putting on a disguise, to be honest. That's a Pan thing to do. But yeah, they end up doing that, and we ended having it. This Pan is voiced by Michael, which is crazy. Michael, well, you know, possibly or possibly not owner of a Twitter account. No, I'm joking. Topical memes, guys. But yeah, that's kind of crazy. You know, I guess, you know, taking advantage of the position in the Jack and Jellyfish crew. But yes, getting that cameo, which is pretty fun. And yeah, the challenge is over because Pan is held by Chainsaw. So they end up nominating Team 47. We eliminate Pan, who for some reason falls in slow motion. Physics are rage baiting. And then Team 47 is up for elimination. Who gets out? Treasure chest, I think, realistically, right? Like, there's nothing here to really say. Ukulele and Bubble Up are fine. Alright, and then I should be fine. So it's just whether treasure chest or Journal will be going, because Journal is, you know, in a way neglective, right? Journal is being neglective to these other people. right, they're being neglective to their friends because they're not being honest, they're not sharing what they're saying, and in a way, they're a little bit annoying because they don't tell us what the fuck they're doing, right? They've not said anything about the monster, we don't want to see it, so in a way, they're a little bit annoying. However, I think they're fine, right? Because at the end of the day, apparently they're the ones who have to fucking save the world, so it'd be bad if we eliminated them. So treasure chest has got to go, held on to a grudge when the team left, didn't allow them their freedom, didn't try to one-up them, they didn't try to just beat them, they were just looking at them and be like, oh, like they were, in a way, they're scared of Team Bracket, right? Team Bracket is doing well, but like they're scared of Team Bracket, they won't just sit there and try to perform and challenge them at their game. No, they're just going to, they try to take them out, try to remove their existence, which isn't good. So treasure chest has to go, and that is bad. Treasure chest going is bad news, man, because this team is not there's no leader anymore, because like treasure chest really could get these four to actually coordinate, and with that lack of coordination, that's gonna be bad, because bubble wrap and ukulele, they'll get along, but there's no plan making, right? Journal's distracted. It isn't really too much of a creative mind. And then Bubble Wrap and Ukulele, they form a plan, they won't form a good one. So, it's not looking good, man. Team 47, I think it's officially time for the downfall of Team 47. Treasure Chest is going to get out, and they're losing the next challenge. So that's my prediction, but we're going to need to see. In due time, the post-credit scene just continued to fall. That must have been a fun scene to record, wouldn't it? And I just felt like this fucking shout for 3 minutes. The neighbors go like, "What the hell?" The YellowAngiru neighbor going like, "What the hell?" The guy who burned in the fucking papers in Southampton screaming. But either way, that is episode 8 of Paper Puppets Take 2. So that's October 2020. Episode 9 released in March 2021. So that's like a couple months. That's like 4-ish months. So let's see what it goes. Episode 9, Picture Perfect. Go. Okay, that is episode 9 of Paper Puppets Take 2, Picture Perfect. So, in this episode, we have ourselves a lot of things happening, and a lot of things developing. Now, for the classic question, is there a re-assay? You know what? I think no, right? I think there actually isn't a re-asset in this episode, which makes it like the first episode ever to do that. It took 9 tries. Ukulele was the other one which I was like, does that look different? I don't think it does. I think that's a placebo. But yeah, good job. This show has officially figured out how to keep an asset for more than 2 months. That is legendary. But either way, we end up having the elimination hosted by Platinum, who really wanted to go all out with the elimination because, we were really trying to properly make it cool because they're very show-offy. Platinum's very show-offy, Bronze is very nonchalant, and Silver is going to be the most relevant character. No, okay, I think I have to give up on that idea right now. I think Silver is just not relevant, but come on. There are interesting ideas there. But yeah, we have the studio audience, which is just the other teams. 8,000 votes. The prize, it goes to Treasure Chest. And the eliminated contestant, or the one with the most votes, was also Treasure Chest. I'm telling you, dude, there is a radicalization being shown and being proven right here. It's one of those, you either think they're in the wrong, and therefore you vote them out, or you think they're in the right, and you defend them by voting them, which means that they get a prize and eliminated. It's a really, really interesting thing. Like, it's like really, there's no middle opinion on these characters. They're controversial in nature, right? Which is very intriguing. And I've not seen it performed this much in a show rather than I've seen it here. Here it's like constant. It's like every time. It really is a detail with how the voters for this show vote. It's very different and it's kind of interesting. You end up having a blank camera paper, then a silver ends up making some cupcakes, which they end up giving out, and the eliminated contestant ends up being ends up being by 200 votes Treasure Chest, who as a last second ends up opening up the chest, which is cool. First of all, yes, that is cool. Object using their object nature, and then secondly, they use their immunity token that they have apparently. So they're like, when the hell did you have that? Now, they end up, of course, apparently having stolen it from the Game Boy Color, which, by the way, has a new name now. They're called like Game Bot Berry or whatever from the intro. But because, oh no, what if Nintendo takes down all my object show? That's not gonna happen. But either way, we end up having the church has to silently go over there and take it, and they get to try to use it. Well, they're not allowed to use it. You know, that they shouldn't be they shouldn't be allowed to use it because it's too late. You need to use it before an elimination. To be fair, Golding for the past 2 eliminations has not been requesting for the usage of an immunity token. Like, if anybody has any band who would you like to play. But no, that has not been requested by Golding at any time. However, at the same time, it's because they were not aware that somebody had it, right? So yeah, then they're going, yo, Chainsaw keeps cheating. What the hell are you on? So then we end up having Bronze go like, yo, look, they stole your golf cart and stuff. It's like fair, but like also, I mean, like, cheating. What is cheating? You know, like, nobody defined the rules of cheating. You know, when did somebody was like, no, you can't take the golf cart? Like, that's stealing. Like, see, that's kind of a different thing, right? Because it's like, the rules of the show do not stipulate that you cannot steal. Stealing is bad by the nature of how stealing works. However, just because stealing works like that, doesn't mean that it's cheating to steal. Right, like you see, that's like the main leading difference, right? So even then, I don't think it should be against the rules to do that. You know, like, you should get punished, but I don't necessarily think it's against the rules. So because of that, because of their complaining, they end up allowing it, and therefore they're safe. Which means that Malachi ends up being the one eliminated instead. Curious why I know their name? It's because it's on the screen. I forget it immediately after. It's on the screen when I'm looking at it right now, on my feed. But, like, Malachi has been eliminated, and now Journal is mad. Journal is fucking pissed. So, like, Journal starts going off. What? How could you dare do this selfish act? You know, I thought you were a team player. Well, no, you're not a team player. You're a team leader. That's different. Okay, look. We'll be 100% honest, right? Journal does not know how a team captain operates, okay? A team captain will sacrifice crew members to remain in captain position because he is the most important one on the team. The team captain is the most important player on the team, which means that 2 team players are directly worth less than the team captain in a lot of, ships and stuff. Like, this is how the economy tends to roll, you know? Like, the team captain, because they organize the team, is a higher level member. That's why they're captain. They're more important. So losing them is a bigger deal. You know? So, first of all, that's wrong. Second of all, okay, because of that, second of all, alright, it's just you want to stay safe in the game. It's not that complicated of an understanding to understand. Now, yeah, first of all, just want to say a quick detail. I haven't really mentioned a lot of the technical details because I think, from here on out, the show has kind of locked itself in. Now, I don't know if it's when heading into the later series, it's gonna take an additional step up. But I will say that definitely this show has definitely stepped into the setting of, like, perfectly suitable, perfectly fine, perfectly satisfactory. So now, talk about the technical details, like, you get it. Like, it's roughly the same. So I'm kind of just discussing the plot elements now, because that's the main thing that's changing, right? I've been discussing the writing, because the writing hasn't really, in my opinion, changed. It's remained relatively good in terms of pacing, like it really is. However, I mentioned that in the Carnival episode, and I'm kind of like, okay, you get it, right? Like, it's kept itself to a relatively nice standard. In this episode, for example, as well, there's a lot of solid pacing. It's the longest episode, but yeah, as you can see, it's the longest episode that we so far. But as you can see, we kind of take a look at it. The fellas split off and doing that. Some of them were doing serious things. Some of them were being goofy, right? So you split off, goofy, serious, goofy, serious, goofy, serious, and then you do all that stuff, right? You progress with some lore, you progress with some arcs, and you progress on some funny, right? So then you do all of this, and then so good. So pacing is still good, right? I'm trying to know. I don't mention as much, because I'm like, I mentioned it the other time, but I'm trying to do that. And then they're discussing I'm doing against the characters of the show. A character can be flawed, and the writing still be good. So I don't blame the writing if Journal's bad. I'm just blaming Journal, okay? That's what I'm saying. But yeah, Journal ends up doing that. Now, I'm going to be honest. I'm actually surprised. I'm actually very surprised. Because it seemed like Journal really wanted Malachi to stay. Which is way different. I thought it was going to be opposite. I'm not going to lie. I thought Journal was actually going to be content with this. Because Journal... because like Malachi was totally about to bust bro's ass, right? Like Malachi was like 3 steps away from finding the waterfall cave, right? From going back for the waterfall, finding out everything, right? They were gonna find out, all right, in due time, right? So I'm very surprised. I think it's, of course, because of the words, right, that Malachi said. Like, hey, take care of yourself. I'm worried about you and all that stuff. Like, they felt caring from them, right, Malachi. And the fact that Jono never got to say the truth and just had to lie to Malachi until Malachi got eliminated is kind of hurting them, I would say, right? Like, it's kind of hurting them because, like, damn it, this bro cared about me and I never got to say for the truth of the situation, right? I never got to say the truth. I only really got to... have to put on this act. So I think they felt bad about that. But I'm kind of surprised because I thought they were super into the deal. It's like nobody can know about it, right? But in the same way, it's like, especially after seeing the results of this challenge, I'm really confused. Because it's like, it's almost as if this isn't as big of a deal as bro is making this out to be, right? Because it's like... It's almost as if it's not that big a deal. Like, Post-it note ends up going down there, and it's like, they don't treat it that serious, right? They don't treat anything that they see or anything that they're looking at that serious. Same thing goes for the image at the end of it, because I guess we'll say it. In the challenge results, a treasure chest actually goes to the back of the waterfall, right? And apparently takes a picture of the portal or the gate, I guess, as opposed to I think was going to say. And it's interesting. It's a cool image, and people seem to know about it. People don't mind. That's kind of the confusion about it. Like, there isn't, it doesn't feel to the other characters. The only character that has really seen this as the big deal that it apparently is Journal. Like, Journal saw the gate and immediately was like, this is world saving stuff I gotta do. Okay, treasure chest sees it and goes like, oh yeah, cool, I could take a picture, right? Like, you can see the perspective is different, right? Like, something's up, But yeah, Journal gets super pissed at treasure chest for surviving them over Malachi, which is unfortunate. And now they looked at them super pissed, going, they take this as an opportunity to just allow treasure chest to do the challenge for Journal. While Journal, of course, goes off and stalks it. In the meantime, we need to get Chainsaw to not rob them, so they will mow the entire grasslands. Let's go. There's barely any grass to mow. I mean, there's a lot of grass to mow, but I've barely seen grown grass. I mean, like, I'm gonna be 100% honest. It's a bit difficult to believe that bro needs to mow the entire grass when the style of the show, it makes the entire grass a plain colored lime. I am not seeing grass to mow, but okay. Will be temporarily split into pairs. You get to take one picture, and then you are good. The characters proceed to adventure off to go do that. In various degrees, in various capabilities. Some of them want to dip it out. I will mention this one more time. It's, yes, by here, if I'm not mistaken, by episode 9, maybe even episode 8, I'm not entirely sure which one. However, by one of these episodes, there will have been the official casting of Zane Leaves as 2. Which means that from then on out, there will officially be the factoid that Basketball and 2 have the same voice. Like, they're the same voice actor with pretty much the exact same voice. There's no real playing done to it. So, like, that is interesting to note. I'll be curious if it'll remain. I mean, presumably, but like it'll be intriguing, I guess, to witness. Either way, they end up taking the picture. So who ends up taking the first picture? No idea. Oh yeah, Chaz ends up going over while Jono's upset because Jono ends up being going far away from you. Then we end up having Milk and Bottle go over to the beach. Globe and Post-it Note was like, well, Globe doesn't really know where to go. But Post-it Note ends up getting their plan stolen, and they end up eventually going over to help Journal doing some confidential stuff. I'm sorry, y'all are so bad at hiding this. How does anybody believe you? How does anybody believe Journal ever? Journal's like the worst liar I've ever seen. It's unbelievable. Now, there is one writing thing which I've seen quite a bit in this episode, I'm not gonna lie, and majority of the arcs have it. Now, this is a bit of a writing thing which isn't really that big of a deal. However, it does, if it happens in excess, bug me specifically, and that is the writing drama-causing thing. But to keep the plot moving along, I call it the pushback pullback, right? It's when a character pushes back on an idea and then immediately pulls it back as soon as there's any type of counterpoint, right? This is something that this episode does en masse, because the way that this does is that, like, for example, we end up having complaint. Hey, shouldn't we slow down? And then Flashlight goes like, no, we shouldn't. And then the caramel cube goes like, okay, right? Like, then we do this. Same thing goes for some other things, right? Like, I don't even know which one. Like, even the sandcastle, right? Where it's like, hey, yeah, even with the sandcastle with Bottle of Milk, that's the same thing. Being like, we gotta improve it. Being like, no, we shouldn't do that. And it's like, okay, right? It's that same dynamic that goes on there as well. Where else does it happen? Same thing goes for Basketball and Slipper, right? Slipper goes like, hey, go in the dumpster. Basketball goes like, no, I'm not going in the dumpster. Slipper goes like, no, you should go in the dumpster. And Basketball goes like, okay. You see, that's the pushback pullback, right? Where it's like, as soon as somebody gets met with any resistance to their complaint or request or feedback, they immediately go like, fine, right? It's just like this thing where it happens relatively consistently sometimes in certain types of episodes, depending on how they're written. You can really tell. Same thing goes for Journal and Post-it Note, right? You see, same thing goes for Journal and Post-it Note. Like, Post-it Note goes like, what? We shouldn't leave. We've just stayed here. Journal goes like, no, we should leave. And Post-it Note goes like, okay. It's the same thing. You see, it's the same type of it's writing the scene in the same way, right? And it's like there's really not much to them, you know. In the way it's like sometimes it's like, yeah, it's like when this is written like this, always it's like, okay, I start to notice it. Whew. You know, sometimes it starts to be like, okay, every scene is like this, right? And it starts to become a little bit predictable. So this is something that I criticize. I think it's a fault that I don't think other people notice, to be honest. The pushback, pullback, that's a term I come up with. You know, like, I've never heard it used. I've never heard anybody even mention this. I've never heard even anybody mention this writing ideology as a thing, to be honest. Like, this is entirely a piece of feedback invented by me. I don't know if somebody else knows about it, but like, this is a thing by me. Well, at least, you know, I came up with it. Maybe somebody else thought about it, but I came up with it. So it's like, I think that you can't have too much of this type of interaction, because it's really easy to fall into this type of interaction, right? And it's kind of like, okay, can we have some variety, right? But yeah, Milk is obsessing over the details of how to make a sandcastle that's good, because they need to make the good foundation, so they proceed to do that. Then we end up having, okay, actually let's go results to results, okay, because that makes more sense. So let's do that. Let's go from result to result. So Rowdy out the bottle and Milk. So they do the sandcastle on the ocean after stealing Post and Note's idea. Milk is obsessing over the details. They want the sandcastle to be as good as possible because they're really about the detail, with the chef and everything. Good Milk characterization. Bottle, again, it's kind of helping out. It's kind of being a general nice character. We'll be honest, giving me initial winner vibes. If Watermelon can win season 1 by doing absolutely nothing, Bottle can also do that. So I'm currently I'm not online. Bottle is giving some winner vibes right now. But either way, it is a bit crooked, so it doesn't get the maximum score. However, overall, it's a great image, and the sunset definitely helps it out because it was closing in. Then we have the humorous image created by Basketball and Slipper, which is of Platinum crashing out, as the kids would say, into in the room, and they eventually get the chandelier to drop on them. So there's the picture of them on the floor with the chandelier. That's a good image. It's a very good strategy as well to play in on Golding its comedy element. Silver laughs at them and just look. Silver's. I don't know. I want to believe. Post-it note and Globe, or just Globe, takes a picture of the sunset at the top of the mountain. It's a great sunset. I will have to admit. Then we end up having the caramel cube and flashlight version, which of course went in the mud. So they tried to save it, however it ends up making it pixelated for some reason. I feel like that's not how that would work. That would make it colored wrong, right? But that wouldn't make it pixelated. I don't how does that work? I mean, no, not sure if I believe that, but especially when hold on. No, okay, never mind. I forget whatever I was about to say. But I don't know. I don't think that would make it blurry. But either way, yeah, it's unfortunately, just a photo with technical problems, so it's not exactly great. They're looking angrily at Globe as that seems to be now a harmed relationship because the teams were helping out, they were being helpful, but now with Globe overstressing about the team betraying them or whatever, they end up having the problem there. With the situation. And again, there's such an obsession over cheating. What do you mean? It's not cheating to take the same picture. If you go to the same place, you can take the same photo. What? What is the point? I don't get it. What is the cheating? That would be called out there. But yeah, that's gonna be a problem. I don't think I think Flashlight is gonna kind of get in against Glow now, right? Because Glow never really convinced Flashlight. I think Caramel Q is gonna need to have a talk with Glow. But there's gonna be kind of problems. But yeah, either way, we end up having the gate, which Post-it was very happy to say, but of course they won't. But it's apparently the best thing. It's crazy cool, and it's excellent, and it's super cool, and it's great, and it's the best thing in the world. And Journal, what are you on? I'm not gonna lie, I don't trust Journal for a fucking second. No, in this show, I don't. Journal is not, there's no way. I think that Journal, I mean, the Mr. Hand stuff's real, but I'm feeling something's wrong. I mean, I get what's going on. That's like a gate to the freaking comic dimension or whatever, right? It's one of those classic portals, right? And then kind of is being used, and then it's trying to being used by Mr. Hand to eventually come back from the comic dimension to use that portal to eventually get rid of it. So of course what would be the plan? I don't know. Instead of fucking sifting through boxes for 3 minutes a day, or apparently 3 million hours a day, but then freaking spend your time freaking staying up till 4 a.m. looking in this room and somehow not checking the fucking drawer of the desk you're sitting in. What the fuck are you doing? Nah, Journal. You are bad. You are bad at this. I'm just being fully straight with you. But yeah, anyways, we end up having the picture which Plasma Ball and Night Helmet do. They get with an agreement after Plasma Ball gets surprises at Night Helmet because they end up choosing to say Plasma Ball over the camera as after Plasma Ball does that, and they end up falling. And Plasma Ball gets hey, sorry about my temper, and they actually have a moment of understanding. Night Helmet is so egotistical and kind of dumb, but hey, at least Plasma Ball gets to make fun of him. He, it's there's a degree of mutual respect. Whereas like they both think quite highly of themselves. I was like, okay, we get it. All right. But yeah, then we end up having the picture taken by freaking ukulele, ukulele and bubble wrap. Yes, I was for some reason trying to remember the name. But unfortunately, don't actually get to see this picture. But it's apparent they were trying to take a picture of the butterfly on the flower, but it got ran over by the tractor right as they took the picture because Chainsaw was mowing the grass and that was technically grass. So it's unfortunately, but they're up for elimination alongside the glitch picture, which makes it different. Now, I'm sorry. The voting method will be different. Use the form in the description to which contestant deserves a prize and which contestant deserves elimination. What? That is the same voting system. Huh? The voting system has not changed. What is the difference? You get prize and you get eliminated. Huh? Is it that it's using Google Forms? Was it not? Or was it using? It wasn't the comments. It already wasn't the comments. It was something else. It was like a form. Is the change just that it's a Google form rather than differentwebsiteform.com? What do you need to say that? Gold ingot? Are you good? I mean, okay, bro. But alright then, but yeah, overall it's a good episode. I am enjoying these episodes. You know, again, they've got some nitpickiness to them. We end up almost seeing the portal, because it's getting hidden from us. Woo! The contestants literally don't care about it, but we don't get to see it because it's too important. Okay, bro. But yeah. That is an intriguing scene. Alright. Yeah. Should we do an episode 10? What are we thinking? Should we do an episode 10? Yes, let's do an episode 10. Episode 10, Wholehearted. Go. Okay, it's night, and we have taken a look at episode 10 of Paper Puppets Take 2. Pretty short episode. Wholehearted, because you fall down the hole, the heart, and the thing, the eliminated character, okay? So, yeah, the one thing that I really notice with this show is that, like, I'm not gonna lie, the thing about it is that, like, it is doing a lot of arcs, it is doing a lot of character arcs, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm finding one consistent pattern between every negative, quote-unquote, every serious, quote-unquote, character arc that has happened in this show, okay? They could all be solved if the characters talked. It's so annoying sometimes, because it's like every single one, like you could maybe talk it out, you know? Because it's like, okay, Sanaha and Love, for example, right? They're mad at Golden because, like, we don't care. But notice, they've never fucking just said that. They've never said that. If their plan was to quit, why don't they at least say that, try to earn respect, and then if they get fired, whatever, right? They were gonna quit anyways, right? Because they can't work like this, they can't work like this, and they can't work like that. So at least have a confrontation, you know? Like, say, just talk. Be civilized, right? Same thing goes for majority of these problems, you know? Like, at the end, like, we end up having the major issue between like Glass Shard and freaking Flashlight, because like there's never communication there, right? You just end up like, oh, you were distracted on your phone, all right, and now you end up having Flashlight, you know, just give you a silent treatment. So then bro goes like, what the fuck? Until eventually you lash out and then it's already too late. Right, because there wasn't a communication to be like, yo, you gotta help me out. You know, same thing goes even down there. Even down there, when Flash got eliminated. By the way, Flash got eliminated. It was a rough elimination in general. Like, for people, like, there wasn't anybody who deserved to go. Like, out of the fellas that failed, there wasn't really a deserving fail. You know, because Flashlight and Caramel Cube, they got a good picture and they were going to get a good picture, but they got unlucky. Like, they both of the teams that lost kind of didn't really deserve to lose. Like they didn't do bad, so they did. So like it was a difficult one. So I think Flashlight, especially for prior reasons, I think getting out makes the most sense. But yeah, like Flashlight doesn't communicate, you know. And it's like, okay, yeah, sure, your boyfriend's giving you attention. You gotta say that before you just dump him. That's not how relationships work. Kids, don't do this. Kids, don't do this. If your boyfriend looking at the phone and then you trying to get attention, you gotta point it out to him. Hey, I'm feeling like you're not giving me attention. I'll need more attention if you want to continue. You know, communication and stuff, right? The same thing goes for every arc. You know, every arc. Journal and the freaking the treasure chest, there's no explanation directly given. Journal just ends up, no, I mean there is technically, it's like, hey, you're evil, right? But then treasure chest doesn't get to speak, no words get to be said. Journal just goes like, shut up, and proceeds to leave, and proceeds to be like, oh no, you do not talk to me, you do not talk to me, you vile creature. And it's like, bro, okay, cool. Same thing goes for Globe and literally every person, because Globe is one of those everybody's against me type of people, right? So Globe is like, you were gonna betray me, okay? And it's like, well, talk. Say that's a concern. I don't know. Go talk to friggin' the Caramel Cube, be like, hey, I'm worried about this, and then, you know, maybe you can work a deal. You know, Caramel Cube be like, hey, how can I prove my trust? Like, okay, then give me $300 or buy Switch. Not that, but like something, you know, to like prove the trust. And it's like, because it's so annoying. It's all of these arcs, man. It's unbelievable. Everything. It's always like the characters just don't talk. They don't talk it out. And it's like, bro, come on. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I like the writing. The writing of these arcs. They are different. Like, you see, like, they're all different situations, right? They're all different situations. The pacing of the episodes at this point is just good. The pacing is very solved, right? The anime is so, but like, I'm not gonna lie, this plot line, like I was getting, like, in the last episode, no, I'm nitpicky. Now I'm just kind of like, bro, why is every single plot line about a character that doesn't fucking communicate? It's pissing me off, you know. Same thing goes with, by the way, Journal and the other fight. The only reason Journal is mad at Globe is because Journal never got to say the other thing about the gate that was apparently so unbelievably not the problem that Treasure Chest took a picture for and everybody thought it was cool as fuck. You know, like, it's just, bro. Whatever. This is getting to me, okay? Anyways, we end up having some interesting things. Of course, the like end up going to Bubble Wrap. Fair enough. And then we end up having the eliminated contestant be Flashlight. And we end up having the Knights try to say a speech and they get out, and then we end up having Plasma Ball do that. So one thing I've noticed, Plasma Ball and the Knight are super, like, they've shared I believe every single scene in this episode. Like, they're never in a scene without the other one also being in the scene. I think they probably want to do something brewing with that. I think that's currently the idea because, like, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like it's kind of the idea where it's like, you know, they dislike each other because they both, you know, have this perception of, like, you know, being smart, right? And by having this perception of being smart, they dislike the other. However, suddenly after the guy saves Plasma Ball, it's like, oh, I see. I see. So then there's like that gained respect, right, on both sides. So then it's kind of like, while they both like each other in that type of kind of like, I'm smart, you're pathetic, but they both consider it in your way. So they both consider it amusing to look at the other, right? So I think that maybe that could be something that they're trying to brew together, right? I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a shipper. No, I'm not saying I would ship that. I'm just saying that that's what I believe is getting hinted at, but I don't really know. I don't think the Knight's surviving too many more episodes to really get to tell the tale. But either way, we end up playing Cornhole, which everybody apparently loves. It's a great game. And the challenge is, of course, Cornhole. Get 5 points if you land it. My 1 point if you do it. Some teams end up beefing, like Globe's team and stuff. Journal is a pretty good thrower. Some aren't. Basketball is pretty bad. And then, however, eventually Globe, after getting targeted last second by Journal as well, just so that they don't lose, ends up getting 2 teams on them, and therefore Team Question Mark inevitably loses. The episode. Last second, Globe lashes out saying that, hey, it's because you were gonna betray me and all that stuff, and and then Caramel Cube's like, what? Huh? What the hell are you on? By the way, does Caramel Cube change voice again? I'm not paying. Okay, here's the deal. I don't pay that much attention to Caramel Cube's voice, but like I swear it's different every time I do pay attention. Okay, maybe I'm wrong, but I swear it sounded different. But okay, look, I don't know. Caramel Cube, you do you. Okay, you do you. Then Team Question Mark is up for elimination. Who the hell is getting out? Globe. Okay, here's the deal. You can debate that maybe Milk has got some issues because they did injure Plasma Ball, right, by getting the throw. That's too strong. We end up cracking Plasma Ball, so Milk causes injury to Plasma Ball, right? So there is the possibility of that. However, in general, Globe's got to go. Like Globe again doesn't communicate to the team. Okay, they don't do that for some fucking reason. Okay, so they don't communicate to the team. They don't communicate to the other team. They don't give any communication about this alliance thing. They just be like, "Oh, you betrayed me." So they don't do that. They didn't do well at the throwing. They do good enough at the throwing, right? And in general, was just kind of struggling. So it's made assumptions. It ended up sabotaging the other team because they thought that the other team was going to sabotage them, and I think they got to go. Right? They got to go. They played the game too much. They overplayed the game, which is unfortunate. The other two are fine. And then we end up having the quit from Relief and Santa Hat, where they be like, you obviously don't care about us. And again, they end up doing that. It's just, I don't know. Is this an uncommon opinion? Because I need to know. I need to know, because I'm closing off this part 1 here, because I decided that I am going to split this into part 1 and 2, because if I don't split this off into part 1 and 2, this is going to be the longest catch-up of all time, and making 5-hour long catch-up is pain and suffering. They take they take like an hour and a half to render, and like 3 hours to fucking upload. But like, it's like, dude, it does the same thing every time. It's like the character randomly, like the character builds in up all this anger, crashes out at the person, and then leaves, not allowing for any discussion. It happens here. It happens with Flashlight. It happens with Globe. It happens with Juno. It's like, fuck off. The character, don't let the guy respond. I'm so done, man. I'm waking up. I need to wake up tomorrow with a refreshed mindset, because this episode, I think this is very unpopular opinion, but this episode has pissed me off. All right, gonna be honest. I'll tell it like it is. I tell it like it is, in my personal opinion. Whoever is a top dog show or a big dog show, if the show is not personally doing its best, I will call it out, okay, at any time frame, okay? And I'm personally calling out here. Okay, that is the current status of Paper Puppets Take 2 as of the first part of the season. So that means that the original era, the beginning era. So let's go ourselves to the outro. Alright, that will be all for today's episode of Object Catchup. Now, if you're going to this outro to see what the hell is going on with the discussion on Paper Puppet Steak 2, it's because I decided to split it into two parts. Now, I originally decided to split it into two parts. However, I later had revoked that idea, to not do that. And to instead upload a bonus video today so that I could make the Take 2 a complete video. However, I was like, but that's gonna be pain and also suffering because that means that I need to edit a full video today, and then also have a 5-hour long catch to do. And like, for as much as the runtime is there and stuff, I do not personally believe that it is a great concept to be out here making 5.5-hour long catch-ups. I do not believe that these should be exceptional. And for Paper Puppets season 1, I already did a 5-hour and 30-minute long catch-up, which is barely not the longest episode because the object cringe catch-up and stands at 5 hours 19. And it's like, okay, yes, however, it's not a great idea to really, not do this catch. So, this is the catch-up for today. It is this. Because, yeah. Alright. And then hopefully, tomorrow I will have the second part of the Paper Puppet Take 2 featuring the modern stuff, which should theoretically be a smaller video. It should be a video around the same size, to be honest. Because it's less episodes, but the longer. So it'll hopefully be a video around the same size. We'll need to see, and we'll cover the more modern bases of Paper Puppet Steak 2, and we'll finally be done. So for Paper Puppet Steak 2 Day 1, we are getting there. That was the first 10 episodes, which is actually 11 episodes because I watched episode 3 in 2 sections, in the part 1s and 2. So I took a look at 11 videos, marking 10 episodes. The modern times are incoming in the next episode, and then we'll finally be caught up with YellowAngiru's Pride of Work. See you next time. We're getting there. Good luck.